Good evening, everyone, and welcome. This is a concurrent meeting of the Bloomington City Council and the Bloomington Port Authority on Wednesday night, March 9th, 2022. I would like to call to order the City Council portion of this joint meeting.
And I would like to call to order the Port Authority portion.
Carolyn, I think to officially get things started, we need a roll call of the participants. If you could start, please, calling the roll of the City Council.
Carter.
Present.
Coulter.
Present.
D'Alessandro.
Perfect. Present.
Lohman.
Here.
Martin. Martin. Try again.
Patrick, I think you're on mute. Patrick, can you hear what I'm saying? Give a wave if you can hear me. Jamie, could you please text Patrick, maybe get him re-logged in here? I think it's having an issue.
Nelson.
Yep, I'm somewhere.
Okay. Bussey.
Present.
Okay.
So we have all 7 members of the Bloomington City Council present. We'll get an official verbal confirmation from Councilmember Martin, who I think is having technical issues right now.
So Carolyn, would you call the roll for the Port Authority?
Yes. Bussey.
Present?
Carter.
Present.
Hunt.
Present.
Keller. And I don't see him yet. Lunds.
Here.
Peterson.
Here.
And Erickson.
Present.
And Martin.
Yeah, I think he's re-logging in. We'll double back to Councilmember Martin here.
Mr. Mayor, that's correct. He is going to go out and come back in again.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. I know he's here. I saw him, so we'll just officially make it official once we can get a verbal from him.
So just for the record, all Port Authority commissioners, with the exception of Commissioner Keller, are present.
All right. We have a handful of items on our agenda tonight, some of them meatier than others. We don't have to approve the agenda officially. We'll have it in front of us. We'll work off of what we do have. We do need, from the City Council side and then from the Port side, we need a motion to approve the minutes from the December 9th, 2021 concurrent City Council and Port Authority meeting. So do we have a City Council motion for that?
So moved. Coulter.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Coulter, second by Councilmember Carter, to approve the City Council portion of the concurrent Council Port Authority meeting minutes. No further council discussion on that. Carolyn?
Carter.
Aye.
Coulter.
Aye.
D'Alessandro.
I will abstain since I was not present at that meeting.
Thank you.
Lohman.
Aye.
Martin. Let's see if he's back in. Nelson.
Aye.
And Bussey.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0 with 1 abstention by Councilmember D'Alessandro, and Councilmember Martin still working to get logged in.
And I would entertain a similar motion for the Port Authority for the minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion made. Who made the motion? Was that Commissioner Lutz?
Peterson.
Peterson, okay. Do we have a second?
Second, Bussey?
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Carolyn, do you want to call the roll?
Bussey.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye.
Hunt. Cynthia.
Aye.
Keller. Not here yet. Lunds.
Rob, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
And Erickson.
Aye.
6-0.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I guess it's Shane, right? Yeah.
I'll call, under our new business, let's call item 3.1, which is a public hearing It's a spending plan for tax increments for Mall of America tax increment financing districts in consideration of a redevelopment agreement and TIF loan agreement related to the MOA Waterpark project and a purchase and option agreement. So we'll have a staff presentation here, have a discussion on this, and then open the public hearing on the appropriate items here. Mr. Rudlang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, President Erickson, council members, and Port Authority members. I'll share a PowerPoint, which will help walk through this item this evening and establish some timelines for the various parts of it. So just one second here while we get this going. All right. So again, we're talking here about the water park and the adjoining lands, which is the land east of the Mall of America for Expo. So for the agenda tonight, we will review the water park project generally, review the past council and port action related to that project, talk a little bit about the TIF law that was passed in 2021 that gives us flexibility to do some things that we were not able to do before. We'll review the three documents that the council, or the three primary documents that the council and port will consider tonight. And then we'll hear from Kurt Hagan from 555, from Dan O'Neill from our Bloomington Convention and Visitors Bureau. Then at that point, we'll open the public hearing on a part of those documents that we need to consider tonight. Take testimony if there is any, and then close that, have some open discussion, and then consider action. So that's a lot, but it's frankly all material that the council and port have seen before, in particular at the December 9 meeting where this plan, if you will, this plan for financing the water park was presented and approved by the council and port authority in an executed letter of intent at that meeting. So again, I'm not going to go through all of the South Loop plan goals and the mall master contract goals. People might be tired of me doing that. But I did include this one slide, which is really the key and the intent of this project is to accelerate the district's development. And frankly, in the past 3 or so years, we've really seen an acceleration of the development in the district. And I think it's just a testament to all the work that the council and port and staff, et cetera, have been doing. The development community is really responding to the actions that the boards have been taking. So the water park, you've seen these slides before, but I will just move through them relatively quickly. The water park's north of the Mall of America. Public improvements include, in large part, the parking structure that would get built to the east of the water park. A perspective view of the water park and the parking structure. And then a potential hotel as the next phase with additional parking. And then future phases of Mall of America in yellow that are certainly less defined at this point. The project as you would see it from the existing third floor of the north side of the mall, and then from the water park itself. It would be the largest indoor pool hall for a water park in North America. Pools and water parks are calculated by gross building area and various things, but this project would have the bragging rights, if you will, for that, and also the largest beachfront, which of course is prime property for putting out your beach chair. And so this has been the subject of 12 prior city council and or port authority meetings, many of them concurrent meetings like this, starting in March of 2018. And here we are tonight, close to March 6th, 4 years later. We've gone through a long process of analyzing a nonprofit model, which in 2021, the council and port have directed staff to take a look at and draft documents around a more traditionally and privately financed option, which we'll get into in good detail here tonight. So really what these documents do and what we talked about on December 9 is this slide. I think this is probably arguably the most important slide in the deck, and it really just, it says what we're here doing tonight. So we're doing a financing framework for 555, the owners of Mall of America, to go and pursue the final documents to fund the water park. It relies upon TIF investment in the form of $30 million made available through the spending plan tool, which is the 2021 TIF flexibility. So those two terms or phrases can be used interchangeably. We have tighter recapture provisions than we have on other projects. And it also provides $9.5 million as a down payment on the purchase of the adjoining lands by freeing up equity that exists there that 555 owns, and allows us to have an option to buy that property if the site in Bloomington in Minnesota in the USA is selected by the BIE for the World's Fair for 2027. And if that doesn't happen, then this loan, this $9.5 million that we paid on down payment, is repaid by 555 over a 4-year period. And so that's really what we're doing here tonight is we're providing a financing framework for the mall to go and get the final documents done with us and with others to do the project, and securing the core site for the expo on the adjoining lands east of the Mall of America. So the pandemic, of course, has impacted almost everything that everybody has done over the past 2 years. But it certainly slowed the project down. We were fairly close to an agreement with 555 and then potential consideration and approval by the boards to do the project back in the spring of 2020. Obviously, the pandemic hit. But in the summer of 2021, things have started to come back. Then we had Omicron. Where are we at today? It seems like it changes every couple of weeks. Now it feels like Omicron's in the rear view mirror and COVID may be waning, but we all know that we're a variant away from being back in masks and more hunkering down, but we'll just see. What's the new normal? It's unpredictable, but what's been surprising to me, I will say, is that how resilient leisure travel has been. Leisure travel and leisure spending. Those have rebounded just a lot quicker than I would have expected. People are willing to take risks for leisure, and that's really come through in the hotel numbers that we monitor and in other entertainment venues that we have access to that information. Where we're at with hotel and lodging tax revenue is approaching, an 80-ish% of 2019/early 2020 levels, which I think is a little bit higher than we're currently have for our projections, which is really good news. Now we're heading into the spring break months, and those are some good weeks in the hotel business, and we'll see how that looks in the coming months here. And then the 2021 tax bill that really allows us to do this private financing model for the Waterpark. It's similar to some legislation that was passed in 2011. It's a very flexible tool. Its purpose is to get development going. And has various rules. The two primary ones are that it must be committed by the end of 2022, so the end of this year, and it has to be spent by the end of 2025. Just like any project, we do a needs analysis. We dig into the pro forma on projects. Certainly with the Waterpark, with the nonprofit model, we were the entity doing the majority of that work. With the private financing model, we're certainly on the sidelines, more looking in than we are managing the pro forma itself. But this is a pro forma that we are very familiar with from the work that we've done in the past on the project. 555 has a different pro forma than what we had in 2000 at the early 2020 and in 2019. Their revenue projections are up. A lot of the data that's come out about what people are willing to spend at Disney and water parks and things like that has caused them to adjust revenue projections upwards. And expenses have gone both up and down. Some expenses have gotten more fine-tuned because of their experience at other water parks. And then property taxes, the estimate on that has been increased due to the increased revenue and potential increase in NOI. That's just an estimate, of course. So the private performance does exceed our estimates from 2019. And the real kicker here is that the risk of the private pro forma not being right, in particular being overstated, which could lead to a default, is on the developer in this project. So in the private financing model, one of the main benefits to Bloomington and the Port Authority and the city is that we are now yet another step away from financial risk related to the project. Again, on the nonprofit model, we worked for years to minimize the risk, and we're really in a position at that point that, it's my opinion the risk was highly managed for that, but even less so with this model. One of the things that's been, I want to say it's changed, but that we've done more research on since the December 9 Council and Port Authority meeting and approval of the LOI is that we've looked closer at bonding for the committed public improvements. And tonight we're not making a decision on bonding, but that's kind of the way that staff is looking at it. And the reasons are listed here. And so one of the ways to manage and utilize the flexibility in the 2021 tax bill is to bond for the committed public improvements and save the cash balances that we have currently today for other projects that we may want to use a spending plan for. Again, this isn't something that the council is formally making a decision on tonight, but we'd be interested in folks' opinions if there are some. So we're looking at both GO, and GO stands for general obligation, and non-GO back bonds. GO back bonds would place the city's property taxes as a backstop to the debt, with the primary source of repayment being the mall that's generated from the Mall of America project. So the GO pledge reduces the cost of borrowing by lowering the interest rate, but it does have that additional risk. And so we've tended as staff to focus more on the non-GO bonds because of the potential risk. But we believe the potential risk is low, and we'll get into that conversation over the next number of months as we move towards, hopefully, a closing on the Waterpark project. So many benefits to the Waterpark project. We've gone through this before. Mall's 10% of the city's tax base. There would be new taxes generated by the project. The other thing that we did talk about on December 9, which has been added to the agreements, is a discount to city residents. What specifically that is yet to be determined. What we have it in the document is a meaningful discount, which the mall said would be the military discount rate or better, which currently is a 25% discount. And of course, doing this agreement again secures the adjoining lands for the expo. It does have risks. If the project doesn't move forward, we do have $7.5 million that the city has spent from the South Loop Development Fund under the Development Services Agreement, the DSA, for the project. Certainly reputational risk exists. We're involved in a project. If it doesn't perform, again, we don't have financial risk, but it's something that you never want to do, be associated with a project that doesn't live up to expectations. There's always the potential for ownership changes at the mall. The mall now has a number of different LLCs that own different components of the project. Radisson Blue is owned different LLC than the mall itself, which is a different LLC than the land, which is a different LLC than the north side, and so on. There's many LLCs that exist out there. Honestly, that's just how businesses do business today. Same thing is true at Bloomington Central Station and the Terratron development. So this is not uncommon, but it is something that we have to manage. Certainly the performance decline at the mall is always something that we're concerned about. We also, if the project does better than expected, we could recover up to $30 million in TIF equity, in addition to the other recapture provisions for the other parts of the project. The biggest risk by far is that the project just can't pay its debt. It borrows the sums for the project, and it can't be paid. But again, that risk is borne by the developer and not the city and Port Authority. And just like the mall experienced in 2020 with the pandemic, the mall defaulted on their mortgage. Project was closed for a number of months, but we staff felt that the project is always going to be a big mall. The real estate is just too valuable to not continue as a mall, so the chances of it going dark were very, very slim. And I think if anything stress tested a project like that, it would be the pandemic. And so same thing is true with the Waterpark. If the project defaults, there's just a really high likelihood that it's going to remain a water park, but you would have a debt reset like happens in real estate projects from time to time. And certainly there's risks of not doing the project. One of the other components of the project that we talked about in 2019 was labor peace. Just as a review of where labor peace is on a private project, It is not required as part of either the state statute or the 2016 Master Redevelopment Contract, but would be implemented at a hotel if that hotel was built along with the water park, which is very high likelihood. It's a labor piece, and organized labor for operations was implemented at Radisson Blu and the JW Marriott. Sustainability. So we've been updating the Sustainability Commission from time to time on this project. So when we were close to closing back in 2019/20, presented to the Sustainability Commission, and the design work that's happened since then and now has actually been fairly minimal as the project's been on hold. And so we did provide an update to the Sustainability Commission on the 15th of February this year. There was a number of questions related to various things, in particular an assessment of the energy use there, which again, that work hasn't been done because the design has not restarted in earnest, but would after the meeting tonight if the council and port do approve the documents. And one of the other things that was talked about is, offsetting the energy use with sustainable measures such as solar panels. Right now, the project is over budget, as many construction projects are. Literally every project that we've worked on in the past few years is over budget because of labor and material cost increases. And so what we're proposing tonight is up to $5 million be set aside in the spending plan to pay for sustainable measures that currently aren't in the budget if the council and port want them to be included in the project, which would be a conversation that would happen in the future once design is restarted. And again, the private financing with TIF model is similar to other mall phases. The agreement structure is more typical. We'll go through that. The debt's privately financed. The equity is a combination of private equity and TIF. We, again, are not using the nonprofit model. Feasibility study is 555s and not the ports. And the action that's being considered tonight, if the council and port approve it, is really what, design will start in earnest, and 555 will be out there marketing the financing options for the project. And, we'd be coming back to the council and port with the next set of documents within the next 6 months. It's got a private cost of about $317 million. The public cost would be $75 million for the committed public improvements, largely parking, and $30 million in the spending plan. And that adds up to $105 million. So that's the public investment. You'll see the spending plan has a $55 million number in it. And the reason that is because some spending plan items are included in the $75 million committed public improvement number. Those are things that you need to use the spending plan tool in order to spend them for the Waterpark project. They used to be funded by the Self-Lip Development Fund, and we've since taken that out, which is, again, one of the benefits of the project. So you've got a total project of about $422 million. There are some financing reserves and things like that that get you up to over $500 million, but really it's a $422 million project. We've got the public-private ratio. So this is an artifact of the 2016 Master Redevelopment Contract that we have with 555. Through the years, there's been a lot of talk about public-private ratios and, frankly, how they can help tailor and in some ways limit development and limit the public investment in projects. Here we are with looking at a project that has a high public-private ratio. And in the term sheet from December 9, the agreement was that we would adjust the public-private ratio to accommodate the Waterpark project. And we will put more detail on this in the ancillary documents when we bring that to the Council and Port Authority again in the next 6 months, assuming the project is able to come to a closing. But there's no doubt it's a healthy public investment in the project.
Shane, maybe I could just give a historical comment, having been around when the basic contract and things were set up in the first place. When we looked at this first, the reason for these ratios was that we wanted the private investment to keep pace with the public investment. And so I think we were talking about a little bit this morning, and it seems to me that we've really entered a new phase in this, because what we're talking about for this whole project is not money that we have to raise, it's money that we have in hand. It's also money that is all fenced, as I will talk about it, because it's all dedicated to this. So I think that, if as we go forward, we're probably dealing with a little different situation, obviously, than we were 30-some years ago when we went into this project where everything was on the come. We had to make it. We had to get all the dollars in. So I think as we talk about these public-private ratios in the future, we may have to reposition our thinking a little bit, simply because this is something that obviously the development is there, the funds have been generated, and the risk to the city obviously is much, much less than when we initially did this.
Thank you, Mr. President. All true. So the schedule is pretty simple. Now moving forward, if the council and port approve the documents tonight, sometime in the third quarter, call it late summer, there would be a financial closing. We would schedule a council and port meeting as close to closing as possible. I like to get them tied up to the closing because there's always documents and changes that happen as the financing documents are being created, and I don't like to come back to the council and port or sit there and wonder if we need approval from the boards. That's always a precarious spot to be in. So about 2 years of construction after that, the project would open. Okay. So getting into the details a bit, so there's 4 key documents, 3 agreements, and then 1 other document, the spending plan. Again, we'll have a public hearing on that here tonight. So we've got the redevelopment agreement and purchase and option agreement for the adjoining lands, TIF loan agreement, and the spending plan. We'll go through that in relative detail. Just a lay of the land, literally. We're talking about the adjoining lands east of Mall of America. Waterpark is on the Met Center site, north of the Met Stadium site where the Mall of America sits today. So the redevelopment's key purpose is it's a kind of a parent agreement to the many other agreements. The redevelopment agreement itself is somewhat of a child to the 2016 master redevelopment contract. Again, I'm happy to go through all of this in great detail if people want to, but I think I might just hit some highlights. And if there are questions on the various points, I'm happy to go into detail. But again, $75 million potentially via bonding for the committed public improvements. And then the sustainability item is another item that changed from the time the LOI was signed back in, or approved back in December 9. So this has been added. The rest of this is largely the LOI put into an outline format for these agreements. One other detail, the public plaza reimbursement. So that was under the nonprofit model going to be waived. And on this project, we're suggesting that it be waived as well. But we add that the funding, that $5 million-ish to recapture potential. So we increase the amount that in theory could be paid back if the project overperforms the amount of the public plaza reimbursement. Excuse me. Again, needs analysis completed. The city and port in the documents make no representation to the accuracy of the pro forma. We create that distance between the financing and risk by the city. The Bloomington resident discount is required and would be baked into the ancillary documents when we draft those.
Shane, just another historical point, especially for our new council member and maybe others. When the initial contract was entered into, there were no recapture agreements. And that is something that as we have looked at this, and staff has been very good, and we've also had some Port Authority commissioners that were active in development, and they said the situation is changing. And so these recapture provisions were put in. And so I think it's something that was important and something that we just need to continue to do, because obviously in 30 or 40 years, things change, and we want to make sure that we're contemporary. So it's something that has been important and will continue to be important.
And Shane, if I could, I noticed you didn't mention item 13 there, which I think is an important one that is, at least bears mentioning, just so we get it on the public record and people do hear it.
The Bloomington resident discount?
Yes.
Mayor? Yes. Yep. So that is something that is required in the documents. We've had informal conversations with them all about it. We're still working on how that works. But the way the documents say it'll be meaningful, and what we've talked about is that would be at least the military discount, again, which is 25% currently.
Councilmember Carter?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question on that. Would that be in perpetuity, or would there be a time frame that would be through?
Mr. Mayor and, excuse me, she's a council member and she's a Port Authority member. Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Carter, that would be in perpetuity, and it's just.
Great, thank you.
So moving on to the purchase and option agreement. So this is the adjoining lands purchase and option agreement for the Expo site. Again, this gives us a right to buy that site if the site is selected by Expo, and it also acts as security for the TIF loan that we would be making to Mall of America for the Waterpark project. So it cashes out the equity that exists on the adjoining land site, and we require it then to be used on the Waterpark project. And again, these key points are directly from the LOI. The purchase and option agreement has a lot of if-then statements, meaning if this happens with the BIE vote for the Expo, the Bureau of International Exhibitions vote for the Expo, then these various things happen. But in essence, it lays out a way for the city to control that site using TIF from the Mall of America project. So we bookend the value between the mortgage that the mall currently has on that site on the high end, and on the low end, it's the Hennepin County value that is on the books today. And again, the important point here is the security for the TIF loan. So pretend Expo doesn't happen and the Waterpark doesn't happen and the TIF loan is outstanding, then the mall is required to pay that TIF loan back. And if that doesn't happen, then we use mall TIF again to buy the site, and the city has a ton of discretion then on how to dispense with the site. We talked.
I think.
Go ahead.
Saying there's just one other. I guess I better put this on. There's one other point that I think is important for people on both ports to understand, in the public. People look at a 52% interest rate or 0.52 and they say, gee, that's pretty low. But really all the city and port are trying to do is to recover the same rate that we're earning on those funds now. So that's really equitable in that sense.
Thanks, Mr. President. And just for clarity, that's the city's current investment rate. We have folks that invest the cash that we have, and there's rules about how the city can do that, internal policies and others, and we take very low risk, and that's why the interest rate is so low, because it's just really carefully managed so that we make sure that we don't lose money. We're not investing in some risky investments or anything like that. And again, you hear the word again, spending plan, and that has to be drafted and approved in order to use TIF for this purpose. Excuse me. Then we've got the TIF loan agreement. This is actually a relatively simple agreement that lays out the amounts that we'd be designating and defines the various default provisions and things like that. It dovetails very, very much with the option agreement. And this is just a rendering of what the Expo could look like east of Mall of America. And then we've got the spending plan. And again, it's 55 million, and that's overlaps with some of the 75 million. And as stated there, it's 30 million that goes directly into the Waterpark project, and then another 10 million, it's 9.XX million for the TIF loan. And then we've got the committed public improvements that were going to be spent out of the South Loop Development Fund. Those are roughly $10 million. And then we've again added some space for sustainability features if the council and port are desirous of having those as part of the project and aren't already included in the budget. And Kurt Hagan has some information he'll share in a little bit about what sustainability features are already included in the project. And then there's this list of documents, we call them ancillary documents or ancillary agreements sometimes, that come along with a project like this. And there are many of them. I'm happy to go into detail on any of them. Probably the most important one is the recapture agreement. But the die has been cast, if you will, and what we agreed to in the LOI is to model the Waterpark recapture agreement after the Phase 1C recapture agreement, which has been used as a model for Bloomington Central Station projects and others. So the terms are kind of hotly negotiated on many developments, the Terratron developments as well, and so it's becoming a pretty good boilerplate. Every project is different. This one is different again because we're using a 100% recapture threshold for parts of the project and a 50% recapture threshold, which is more typical for us on the public improvements. And then we've got the plaza reimbursement, which is an additional kind of oddity to it. Various easements and skyway access agreements, design build contracts, and so on, parking management plan. There are a number of leases and other things that we need to do, bond documents if that is ultimately decided upon. And then there are some more traditional agreements like the site development agreement, which is the planning document. And then we'd have to tweak the master contract itself to tweak the ratio. And with that, again, we've got Kurt Hagan from the mall who will go through some specific aspects. And I'd be happy to pause for additional questions. I know we've been kind of doing questions along as we go, but we can do this however the Port Council would like to proceed with it.
Well, Shane, I just wanted to make, and I see Commissioner Luntz has his hand up, but you're talking the spending plan has $55 million in it, which should be from the TIF. In my recollection is we currently have, what, $75 or $80 million in the TIF account, so we would still have balance in the TIF account if we do all this.
Mr. President and Commissioners, that's right. Our existing TIF balance is roughly 80 as it sits here today, and then we've got another 20 million plus or minus in land value with the Ramada site. And so call it $100 million for easy math. That number does change because we get TIF in twice a year to the tune of about $9 million a year right now. And but yeah, that's right.
Okay, well, I saw Commissioner Luntz had his hand up.
Yes, thank you, President Erickson. Just simple question. I want to know if there's been any change on the proposed revelation date of when the BIE will announce their decision of the city location for the 2027 World Expo. It was originally, I believe, going to be this fall. I recall maybe at the December 9th moving, it was into 23. I just want to know, is that 23 date still in place or has it changed? Thank you, Shane.
Thank you, Mr. President, Commissioner Lunds. The BIE is set to decide the location of the 2027 or 8 Expo in June of 2023.
So a question from Councilmember Lohman. Councilmember Lohman?
Thank you, Mayor. A question about the, I did see that we had $5 million for sustainability, and I was curious how we got to that amount for sustainable projects, and then I've got kind of a follow-up question around that same thing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members, Councilmember Lohman. It seemed like a good round number. So there's honestly not a lot of science to that, and I mean, obviously, I think $5 million would buy a lot of sustainable items. And again, we just wanted to create space so that the council could decide to add those features if they wanted to. But to answer your question directly, it's there's not a lot of science because the science or engineering or architecture on it, because the project design has not restarted in earnest yet and won't until after tonight if the council and port approve the documents.
that makes some sense in terms of, so that number could be higher is what I'm hearing you kind of say, depending on what takes place with the final designs. Am I hearing that correctly or no?
Mr. Mayor, council members, Councilmember Lohman, it could be higher, it could be lower. We think it's kind of on the higher end, and that's why we put it as an up to number in the spending plan. If it is higher than that, we would have to come back and revise the spending plan.
So I did see in your last slide that we talked about recapture, and that we're using the framework in terms of how we've done that in the past. Had staff done any thought about, and is it even appropriate to look to apply recapture to sustainability, 5 million, go higher with that number? Or is that not something that staff looked at, or is it not something we could do in terms of recapturing that if there's an excess?
Mr. Mayor, council members, Councilmember Lohman, certainly the any sustainability items would add to the committed public improvements, and so that would increase the recapture amount. Will there be recapture on the project? Nobody knows sitting here today, but we would definitely bake that into the recapture. And Kurt and I haven't talked specifically about that, but that is somewhat alluded to in the documents. So I think that's fair to say that we would have that in there.
Yeah. Thanks. I just wanted to be clear in terms of what that number was, how we kind of got to that number, and if there was if there's something that more that should be or could be done, we could at a later point increase that number, and we would still be able to, if we see success in a potential project, look to get some recapture off of that. Okay. So if I understand that correctly.
Shane, I think from our discussions earlier that you had indicated that there's already a lot of sustainability things that are included in the plans. And so I think when you get into looking at this, by the time the detailed plans get out, you first have to assess everything that's there and then look at if there's a delta or something that people want to look at.
Mr. President and Commissioners, yeah, it's correct. And Kurt Hagan does have a couple of slides on what's included. It's a more brief summary of what was presented to the Sustainability Commission here on Feb 15. So he can go through what's baked in already.
Council, any additional questions?
Councilmember Coulter.
Councilmember Coulter and then Councilmember Nelson, excuse me. Councilmember Nelson. Councilmember Coulter.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quick, Shane. I just want to clarify this 30 million. Now I lost it. The 30 million that the city and the port will invest in design and construction. Where is that coming from?
Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Coulter, that is Mall TIF.
Okay, that's from that same Mall of America too. So then a follow up to that. I know. There have been some pursuit costs from the South Loop Development Fund that are going to be reimbursed. Beyond that, are there any planned expenditures from the South Loop Development Fund in this project as it's currently laid out?
Mr. Mayor, council members, Councilmember Coulter, what you're referring to is the roughly $7.5 million that the city has spent in pursuit costs to date through the development services agreement. So on closing of the project, those funds would be repaid to the South Loop Development Fund. So then the South Loop Development Fund is made whole. And the other piece of the project is that instead of using South Loop Development funds for site preparation costs and some things that we could not use TIF for previously, they would now be paid for out of TIF. And so that's a long answer to answer your question, but a little bit more detail that A, the South Loop Development Fund gets repaid, and B, there's no new expenditures from the South Loop Fund for the water park.
Okay, so to clarify even more succinctly, the answer there is yes. There are no more planned expenditures from the South Loop Development Fund as this project is laid out. It's entirely all the expenses, as far as we know, are planning to come from this MOA TIF.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yep.
Councilmember Nelson.
Can you hear me, Mayor?
You're very faint. We can hear you, but you're very faint.
Sorry, I'm in a car. Let's see. Can you hear me at all?
Yes, we can hear you. Talk as loud as you can, if you could, please.
I will scream. My niece will be very unhappy. So my question is, can you help me understand the distinction between the water project and the World's Fair project? How are they? I know they're connected, but how much are they connected?
Mr. Mayor, council members, Councilmember Nelson, just to understand, I think the question was, and to repeat it for everybody, was what's the connection between the water park and the Expo project? And the answer is that the mall, is not currently involved in the Expo project, but they are okay with us using TIF as an interim funding source to secure the land if we do this water park project. And so that's the connection. There is no T5 555 involvement with the Expo project at this time, except for we're using TIF generated from the mall project to secure it temporarily and cash out the equity that 555 has in the adjoining lands. So the land is, it's like you have equity in your house. You're able to, get a second mortgage of sorts to capture that equity and do something else with it. In this case, we came to an agreement with them that they could do that. They could cash out that equity that they have only if they use it for the water park. We're not cashing it out so that they, can spend it on some other project. And the byproduct of that, of course, is that we get site control for the Expo. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I appreciate that. I want to make sure that it's not if something doesn't happen, that we're obligated to do it for some other reason. Let me just ask a question about the risk of the water project, because I think that was a big concern with the previous funding model. And what is the city taxpayer risk of what we're looking at with this water project if it doesn't perform?
Mr. Mayor, council members, Councilmember Nelson, I wanted just to pause on your first question just for a second, because there is an important detail. So there's a provision in the contracts that says that the council and the port and the developer 555 have to be reasonable with each other in developing the ancillary documents so that somebody doesn't hold the documents up for an unreasonable provision. So, what you're doing tonight is considering, you're not formally approving everything that relates to the water park, but we're setting an outline and putting in 4 documents our intent to close this thing and be reasonable on the negotiation of all the other ones. Doesn't mean we're agreeing to every provision, but it means that we are agreeing to negotiate in good faith and be reasonable. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. And then your second question, which I may forget it, and so somebody may have to help me out.
Taxpayer risk.
Taxpayer risk. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only taxpayer risk, again, is if the council and port decide to sell debt for the public improvements and also decide to pledge the city's GO to that, which I think is the less likely option, but it's something that we will talk about and present, and the council and port can decide. Again, that will ensure that the debt is slightly less expensive, but it does have the additional risk of putting the property taxpayers as a debt backstop. But again, I think it's less likely that the council will decide to do that, but you never know, because I think the bonds that would back up that debt are the TIF that's generated from the mall project itself, and even through the pandemic, those tax bills were paid. Again, they were paid a little late in 2020 due to the pandemic and the project closing, but ultimately they were paid. And so I think that repayment source is very secure, and I think the people that would buy those bonds would agree. But again, that's something the council and port can decide. But that's the only tie to the city's general fund that we have in the project, and it's certainly something that the council can decide to not do.
Yeah, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. Councilmember D'Alessandro.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good segue into the question I was going to ask, because I wanted to talk about the bonding question. So what, there are a number of numbers, if you will. I think we're all kind of clear on them, except for me, maybe. There was a $55 million number, a $75 million number, and a $30 million number. Can you just describe the differences between those, or do they roll up to thing? I know eventually we get to 105 million, but I can't find the math, and so I'm trying to understand, if you would please. And then the question I ask is all of that potentially what you want us to consider from a bonding perspective, or is it just a portion of that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, and Councilmember D'Alessandro. So this slide, what we've got in the documents is $75 million in committed public improvements and $30 million in equity. And the spending plan has this overlap, and the spending plan is up to $55 million. So some of the spending plan, well, let me put it a different way. The spending plan covers the 30 and then a portion of the 75. So the total public investment potential is 105 million as it sits today. And if you add the full sustainability 5 million, you get up to 110 million. But just pretend it's 105 million. So it's relatively easy math. 75 plus 30, that's it. The spending plan just has to cover those expenses that you can't normally spend TIF for. So it covers the 30 and it covers additional costs in the 75.
Additional costs that are contained within the 75 but cannot be
That
TIF.
is correct, yes.
Okay, understood. Thank you. Okay, and then the second question, which is how much of that are you asking us to consider bonding for potentially of this number?
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner D'Alessandro, for that question. So that would be outlined later, and we need to separate out the spending plan money because that has to be spent in cash versus the committed public improvements that that lie outside of the spending plan are what have to be bonded for. So it's roughly 60 million or so is the answer today, but we would put more precision on those numbers when we come back to you with the bonding question.
One more follow-up, then. Thank you. Then can you articulate, generally speaking, without a whole lot of detail, what are the kinds of things that fall outside of what is allocable for TIP? Like what can you use TIF for and what you can't in that number? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, and Councilmember D'Alessandro. So we do have certainly TIF experts on the line who can answer that question. In particular, Julie Eddington knows those rules better than anybody, but I will outline them from my perspective. And if there are more detailed questions, Julie can pop on and do that. The most obvious one is the $30 million for the TIF equity. You can't use TIF directly in a project, but for this spending plan tool that's authorized in 2021. And there are other costs in the 75 that are more directly related to the water park. For example, the site preparation and certain utilities that just serve the water park itself. So they're more like water park costs. Again, those are things that we were going to use the South Loop Development Fund for before. But now we can use TIF for those costs, and so they've been lumped into that. So they're more direct costs. We've always said there's no TIF in the Mall of America building itself, and that's true. There's no dollars of TIF that are in the project itself. That changes with the 2021 tax bill and would change with the spending plan because there'd be money going directly into the water park.
Very good. Thank you.
I have one more question, and it's not related to that part, so that's why, if it's okay with you. So the I'm curious about just the South Loop Development Fund itself. You said there's currently about 80 million in there. How fast does that generally replenish in a typical year? So if we take that 7.4 million or the 30 million out of that number, what are you considering it being replaced in? What time frame?
Mr. Mayor, council members, Councilmember D'Alessandro. So we have two funds that we're working with here, or that we're talking about tonight. The first one is the TIF fund, and so President Erickson was asking about our TIF balance, and that relates to the spending plan. And we have, again, 80 million in there roughly, and another 20 million in equity in the Ramada site. So that gets you to the 100 million. In the South Loop Development Fund, our balance is much less than that and has been greatly impacted by the pandemic, and does have projected revenue to the tune of $6 or $7 million a year, but every year we spend about $2 million alone for police operations in South Loop out of that fund, subsidizing the general fund again. It's a kind of a little known subsidy from the general fund, which we can legally do because it's police operations in the South Loop area that helps economic development and so on, compliant with the statute. But that fund isn't replenished as quickly as the mall TIF fund because there's less expenses unless we spend it on a big project like this on an annual basis. And there are lots of other projects in the South Loop Development Fund. So once a year we come to the Council and Port Authority, even though it's a city fund managed by the Port Authority staff, myself and staff, we come and give an overview of where the South Loop Development Fund's at. And it's probably a good time to do it is right now. So I think with the next meeting, we'll do that.
Thank you. That's it.
As you can see tonight, I can only remember one question at a time. So thanks for the help.
I think we should applaud Shane because with all his jet lag, along with council member and commissioner, we're impressed with your performance.
Council, any additional questions before we move on here? I'm hearing none from the council.
Any additional Port Authority questions? I think we're good to go.
Onward.
All right, Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, I think next on the agenda is to hear from Kurt Hagan. I know he has a deck that he would like to present. So, Carolyn, if we can get Kurt the presenter role and get Kurt on. Kurt, you're the presenter now. You should have that capability. If you are talking, Kurt, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep, now we can.
There we can. Good evening, Mr. Hagan. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Port President and members. Really glad to be here. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Oh, fantastic.
You might want to move it into presentation mode. I think you're into work mode right now, but a presentation mode. I think one more. Keep going. Two to your right there. Nope, your other right. There you go.
There we go.
There you go. You're in presentation mode. Very good.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. Thanks for the IT help as well, Mr. Mayor. So I'm excited to be here tonight. I thank you guys for, looking at Shane's staff report, 4+ years and 12 meetings for this project. And I feel sorry for former council member Jack Beloga, who put a lot of time and effort into this, one of our champions, and kind of timed out and maybe very fortuitous for council member D'Alessandro, who didn't have to sit through all of that and gets to come in tonight and see the conclusion of this, what I hope is the conclusion of many years of study. I think this may be the most carefully studied and scrutinized development project in Bloomington's history, maybe second only to Mall of America, but I'm not really sure that Mall of America actually itself went through as many feasibility studies and as much study as we have in this water park. But I think it's all coming to a head tonight. I hope it's all coming to a head tonight. And I want to talk a little bit about, how this is really much more than just a water park vote tonight, right? This is really a consummation of a deal that we agreed to last December. We've taken that, what was kind of an outline agreement that we reached with city leadership back in October to an LOI form that was agreed to by the boards in December, and now really turned that LOI into what's about 300 pages. I accidentally clicked on Shane's printed the agenda today and literally killed a tree. I think it's 300 pages. But we've been working hard over the last 3 months, and thanks to staff and your legal counsel for their hard work. I think we have brought that LOI terms forward and is what's contained in the agreements that you've been presented with. I want to give I was going to give a quick design overview, but Shane, you stole a few of my slides, so I'll go through this really quickly. I know all of the important council members, with the exception of Councilmember D'Alessandro, have seen these multiple times, but we've already kind of covered where the project is at. This really just shows the water park itself and a partially built parking deck that would support the water park. This shows where kind of the future development would layer in, including the Waterpark Hotel, which would sit next to it. As that future development comes online, this parking deck would get filled out to complete the parking for these future phases. This is really a shot looking at, if you're sitting right outside my office right now, is right here. So if you're up above Lindau Lane and IKEA Way, going east on Lindau, the plaza that sits there today is really would get consumed with the water park itself, and you'd get a great view of it from that intersection. This is the same intersection, but go up about 150 feet, and we cut the roof off of the water park to kind of give you an overview. It really gives you a good sense of the scale of the project itself. This is looking at it from within Mall of America. This is from our third level food hall today. This is the second level common area. It'd be a giant wall of glass that would, so from within the mall, you would see the water park project itself. This is from the opposite end, the north end of the building. This is that wall of glass I was just telling you about on the far end. Again, just to give you a sense of the scale of this project, it will be the largest indoor water park in North America. Public benefits, we've talked about a lot of these in the past. I think an important one to really hit on is the overnight visitors. So the HLA study that we commissioned, a couple of years ago, projected that the overnight visitors, about 35% of them would be from out of town, would be overnight visitors. That would generate somewhere in the range of 85,000 to 100,000 hotel room nights each year. In each of those guests, on average, would spend about $372 outside of the water park. That's for food, lodging, hopefully shopping in Mall of America. There's about 600 new job opportunities that would be created. And the new local taxes are obvious through the property taxes of the water park itself, as well as admissions taxes on all of the admissions, liquor and lodging taxes that are also created. It's also really something that Shane has talked about a lot in the past, and I have as well, how important it is for the sustainability of Mall of America and the hospitality industry as we kind of reinvent ourselves and kind of diversify ourselves from retail and try to balance our product with more of a 50-50 entertainment retail mix. I won't talk tonight about the Waterpark Hotel, but that would naturally, I think, follow and would create its own economic benefits. And as was already talked about by Shane, there will be a meaningful Bloomington resident discount. This slide I showed maybe a year or so ago. It's kind of difficult to follow because of there's a lot of information in here, but what's really important to note is that where the city wants to get to, what's important to council and port members is really general funding for strategic priorities and all of the city general fund dollars that go into everything that the city funds. 25% on a normal year, last year was a little less, I think 21%, but generally 25% of all city revenues come from either Mall of America or the hospitality industry. Mall of America is your largest taxpayer. Hospitality industry is your largest industry. These two generate 25% of all general fund dollars that go to fund police, fire, strategic priorities. So what supports Mall of America and the hospitality industry, obviously, is traffic and tourism. And that's what these categories are all about. That's what the water park is all about. If we want to drive more funds into the city general fund to fund these strategic priorities, it starts with driving more traffic to the mall and to the hotels. That has a significant impact on how that flows through to the city and city's benefit. This one you've seen many times, really just the total taxes generated by Mall of America. In 2019, our last quote unquote normal year, before the pandemic, it was $136 million. 2020, we have not vetted this with staff yet. Mark Reichel's probably going to be texting me at any moment, but so we need to do that. But it's roughly going to be about $50 million less, primarily because our sales were half of what they typically are when we were shut down for 3 months and severe restrictions through most of that year. So that translates to roughly half of the sales tax, which is the biggest tax generator for us, as well as the lodging taxes generated were obviously a fraction as the tourism literally stopped for that year. This is an important slide that came from the Bloomington Convention and Visitors Bureau. It really talks about how important the mega events have been to Bloomington hotels. The Ryder Cup generated 41,000 room nights to Bloomington hotels. Super Bowl was 26,000. The NCAA was 33,000 for a total of about 100,000 room nights from those 3 mega events. That's to put in scale that the water park itself will generate 85,000 to 100,000 room nights every year. So the equivalent of getting probably at least 2 of these mega events every single year. Sustainability, I'm going to turn it over to, I've asked David Lair, our chief architect, to join us, and he's also our chief sustainability guru. Carolyn, can you share with audio with David Lair?
All right, I think I'm on. Can people hear me?
Yes, we can, Mr. Lair. Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members and commissioners, and thanks, Kurt, for the setup. A couple of things, the sustainability has been at the cornerstone of the Mall of America operations, with more than 60% of the waste already recycled, repurposed, diverted from landfills. There's lots of energy efficiency already built into the programs at the current Mall of America. And it's also a green certified project on the 3 most recent parts, the JW Marriott, the offices at the Mall of America, and the recent expansion of the retail. And, the energy efficiency not only helps the planet, but it also makes good business sense. And for the water park, like many things relate to the Mall of America, we're planning to set a new standard for sustainability for water parks. And this is a really unique facility, so it's difficult to do that, but we intend to move forward with something that has not been done before in terms of reaching a high level of sustainability with this kind of facility. And we want to be the leader in reaching this type of the most sustainable project in the world for this kind of facility. To demonstrate how Bloomington is committed, how the mall is committed, we've outlined a few things here. Some things are already in the project, and some things with the addition of some of the funding and partnership dollars that we talked about tonight will really achieve that high level. And just before getting into the details on this slide, I'd like to really acknowledge our long working relationship with the Bloomington Sustainability Commission. As an architect that's doing work in all parts of the US, it's really rare to find that Sustainability Commission. And, they've asked really good questions along the way. They reviewed the project in detail, and they've challenged us, and we're taking that seriously to reach a new level. So I just have 2 quick slides here to kind of cover a few things tonight. And they describe some of the sustainability measures that already are planned for the project. And also, as one of the questions was asked earlier, how do we intend to use in the most efficient manner and to achieve some of the things with extra partnership dollars from the city of Bloomington. So the slide in front of you, I just want to highlight a few simple things. First off, we're using a regenerative media filtration process in this project for the water part, and it reduces the water for filtration by 92%. It also has a UV light treatment for bacteria and viral concerns. So it's relatively new, but it's something that is really important that we want to build into the project. Certainly our building systems using the most efficient variable frequency drives and pumps and equipment are already built into what we're planning. And this project overall has tremendous amount of natural light, and that's achieved through using a roof system similar to the US Bank Stadium. It drastically reduces down the need for daylight or artificial light and improves the natural lighting conditions in the water park. And any lights that we have are 100% LED. And one other note on our current sustainability pieces that we've built into the project so far is really looking at an innovative concept for how to repurpose the parking structure in the long term, how it might be used for occupied building uses. And that's kind of built into the overall design and cost elements for the parking structure at this point. There's other things that we can get into details, but why don't we slip to the next slide and kind of talk about what might be the potential enhancements. And these are things that all have to be identified and planned and priced out. But the ones that really I want to call some attention to are the LEED Green Building Design Certification. We had the CEO of the U.S. Green Building Council here in 2019 to elevate and try to understand and move forward with a building that by most standards wouldn't be considered, but in partnership at a national and international level, we really want to take that to the next level. Also solar panels, and we can optimize the roof areas on top of the water park and the parking structure to gain good electrical production on site. And they generally have it's a good investment with a reasonable rate of return, and also demonstrates purpose built for incorporating that self-generated electricity. Another feature is really to monitoring the greenhouse gases and energy use through a really innovative Environmental Protection Agency program for a portfolio manager. And that then shows everyone else out there what we're doing, how well we're performing for our greenhouse gas emissions and energy use. And then one other feature, with this kind of investment dollar into sustainability, long-term water conservation programs for Bloomington residents and for people who visit the water park will be a really important part to demonstrate the energy savings, the water savings, and long-term energy conservation. And we can get into a lot of details, but I know there's other things that Kurt would like to kind of fill in on the project itself and how that might return.
Thank you, David. Financial risks I can really talk about actually very fast, because I think Shane, you did a great job of covering that in your staff report and your intro. Basically, but when we shifted from the nonprofit model to the private model, the financial risk shifted with it, right? So the financial risk is now borne entirely by the developer and its private lenders. There is no financial risk to Bloomington or its taxpayers. As I've stated early on in this, I think the greatest financial risk to Bloomington and its taxpayers is not moving forward with a project like this that would generate the benefits and the tax revenues that this would bring to Bloomington and its residents. The next steps is design completion. Assuming the TIF loan is approved tonight, along with the water park and the site control agreement, we'll move right into David and his team are lined up to start tomorrow to complete the design that was put on hold 2 years ago. We've got about 3 to 4 months worth of design work to do yet before we can break ground. So they'll launch immediately into that. We'll also relaunch our efforts with Barclays. Actually, we have been working with Barclays who the city's very familiar with. They've done a great job of getting things set up, but really can't take the private financing to the next level until we get the approval of the boards of the public financing piece. But they've got great relationships in the investment community, great reputation, and we look forward to really moving forward with them as soon as these agreements are approved. That likewise will take us about 4 months. So both of those are lining up for late July or August groundbreaking. We would close on the financing, break ground, get under construction. It's about a 26-month construction schedule, which would put us opening in the fall of 2024. In closing, I really just want to talk about how exceptionally good, or remind you how exceptionally good this would be for not only Mall of America and aiding our transformation to be a more balanced and project, balanced in terms of entertainment retail, but how good this would be for the hospitality industry in Bloomington and the region, how good it would be for the state of Minnesota because of how it strengthens and grows tourism, how it grows economic activity, how it creates new jobs, and perhaps most importantly to the City Council and Port members tonight, how important this project is for Bloomington and its residents by strengthening and growing its tax base while protecting its largest taxpayer and largest industry, the hospitality industry. So I've got an opportunity tonight to move forward with the possibility of over $500 million, what I'll call stimulus projects between the Waterpark and the Waterpark Hotel, plus whatever the Expo may bring if so selected for Minnesota in Bloomington, which could potentially be another $1 billion in development. So in conclusion, I ask for your support tonight for this project, for the sake of Mall of America, for the hospitality industry, for South Loop, for the region, and for Bloomington's tax base. With that, I will open it up for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hagan. Council, questions of Mr. Hagan or Mr. Lair?
Hey, Mayor, this is Sean. I don't know if you can hear me or see me.
Yeah, Councilmember Nelson, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you.
As loud as you can, please.
Sorry, what was that?
If you could do it as loud as you can. We're having a hard time hearing you. Thank you.
Yeah. I thought you said as shortly as you can, so, which made some more sense. We're talking about the risk. If the project doesn't end up working out, the city has built a parking ramp, did other infrastructure. Can you talk to me about the risk of what that looks like if the project doesn't work out? Again, I totally hope it does and expect that it will. I just want to know what happens in that situation.
Mr. Rudling, I think the question was, what's the risk in terms of the construction of the parking structure if the water park doesn't necessarily work out?
Mr. Mayor, council members, Councilmember Nelson. So if the water park starts construction, it's extremely likely that it will finish construction. Same thing with the parking structure, that goes along with that same construction. It would all be built at the same time, the same design builder, et cetera. If all that gets built and for some reason the water park fails, the way more likely scenario, even though it's hopefully unlikely, is that revenues are lower than they're projected, and there's a default on the private debt. And in that scenario, just like any real estate project, the debt resets at a lower number. The owner sometimes is retained, or sometimes you see a new owner come in on the project. And for an expensive project like this, just like what happened during the pandemic, it's very likely that the project remains a water park. It's relatively unlikely, maybe extremely unlikely, that anything else will happen to that building. If that does happen, I think that's the crux of your question. What happens to the public infrastructure? So in that scenario where the debt not only has been reset, but people don't want to go to water parks for some reason, and water parks move out of favor because we're all plugging into the new headset jack on the back of our brains to get our entertainment, which isn't totally crazy, but seems pretty crazy. So in that scenario, you've got a parking ramp and some utilities and things like that you've spent a lot of money on. There's no doubt about that. Certainly the $30 million that went into the building is gone. There's a 60 some million dollar or something like that parking ramp that you've spent money on. And that would get repurposed either to the next project that gets built there, which the port may or may not invest in. Or again, as you've heard me many times say, I think one of the most sustainable things that we will do, and it's a thing that we've been doing for 10 years, as we're kind of almost 10 years into the South Loop District Plan, is to make sure that the parking structures can be used in another way, or torn down in some cases, which we'll get into on the next discussion item tonight. But so you could have a parking structure, and we do have some development rights in the agreements with that parking structure. So if that needs to be converted, so I think that's the answer to that scenario. Although I think it's pretty unlikely to happen that way.
Thank you, Shane. I appreciate that. Just wanted to make sure that it would still be viable and usable. Mr. Hagan mentioned the future hotel. Is that part of this agreement at this time, or is that a future phase? And second question I have about that is wayfinding. I know that we've had some stuff with the parking ramps. Would that the wayfinding be integrated into this new parking ramp?
Mr. Mayor, council members, Councilmember Carter, I think I'm going to repeat your questions. I think there's two of them, which is going to tax me, but I'll try to do it. The first question is there a hotel part of the deal tonight? And the second question was wayfinding inside the parking ramp. So the answer to the first question is no, the hotel is not part of this deal tonight. It would be considered as a separate deal. It is likely to come in roughly 6 months because that project is about a 1.5 year build. And ideally, you certainly want to open a hotel when the Waterpark opens. So that's likely to happen yet this year for us to bring that to the Council and Port Authority. But there are no major deal points that you're agreeing to now as it relates to the hotel. We just don't know how big it is, what flag it is, and we haven't negotiated that deal yet. The second question is wayfinding inside the parking structure. So that is included in the public improvement budget currently. That said, the public improvement budget is over budget right now. We've got $75 million as a max set in there now, which we want to get back down to that number, but the current cost estimate is over 80. And so we need to value engineer down to get into that $75 million bucket. It's a similar exercise that they're doing on the Waterpark itself. Labor and construction costs have just, added about 20% to the project. And this is consistent with every project that we're working on. It's anywhere from 5 to 30% on any particular project, as I'm sure lots of people are experiencing, probably yourself, because you're in that industry and things like that. So we have work to do to get down there. And so it's currently in there. It may be something that we come back to the boards to make a decision on what we want to have in the final committed public improvement budget, because I think we're going to have some harder decisions to make on that front.
Thank you, Shane. I appreciate the clarification. My last question point here is I was on Facebook and it brought up a memory and it told me that this water park would be open by now. And there was a 3-year-old memory that came up and I, wanted to grab my swimsuit and go into a water park and there wasn't one to be had. So I had to sit outside of IKEA, and it's not the most pleasant experience. I appreciate the information on this. I appreciate the work that has been done on this project, and this has been a long time in coming. A lot of work here, and the thing that I'm most happy about is the risk to the city, to the taxpayers, has been minimized in this. Appreciate that. I appreciate the work. It's the biggest concern that I heard from you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. Council, additional questions?
could, Mayor.
Please go ahead, Councilmember Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. And apologies if this has been addressed elsewhere. I'm not sure if I'm phrasing this right. But in the very, very, very off chance something were to happen on the private financing side mid-construction of this project, for example, I don't know, the ownership stake of Mall of America were to change further or something like that. Again, I'm not thinking that's likely at all, but considering the crazy times we've just been through, who knows? What would happen with the construction itself? So, I mean, once the building is up, I'm sure somebody's going to want to run a water park, but what happens if something goes south halfway through this?
Mr. Mayor, council members, Councilmember Martin. So to restate the question just so that I understand it, I think so you get halfway through construction and something drastic happens. What happens then? So certainly if there's an ownership change at the mall or the next pandemic hits or something like that, I don't think that they ultimately affect the completion of construction. And the reason is because you've got $317 million plus reserves of people that have purchased bonds in order to see that project complete. And so just pretend you've spent $150 million on the project, but you've got $317 million worth of bond buyers out there that have a very vested interest in seeing that thing completed. And so especially with this type of financing, and Kurt and Barclays could probably answer this question in more detail, and Kurt, you jump in if I'm coloring outside of the lines at all. But I think the kicker here is once you close on a project, I mean, almost always they get built. If the ownership changes at the mall, that would have an effect on the relationship between the water park entity and the mall entity. But they're all separate LLCs. So when the deal closes, again, the representatives for the bondholders have to understand that could happen, and they do, because that's the way that business is done these days on BCS, the mall, Terratron, any of these deals. You've got separate LLCs, separate legal entities, separate legal things for each and every project. And they can be owned by different people or sliced up and owned then again by different entities and things like that. So you can never say never. You know, a really bad pandemic hits us in the middle of construction that is more severe than COVID or who knows what, and everybody decides that a water park isn't a good deal, then they could decide that they've spent the $150 and they want to fish or cut bait and not spend another $150 to $200 million. I think it's really unlikely, but you can never say never. But I think that's a really low risk. In that case, we've spent a bunch of money on a parking ramp that would then, we'd have to decide if we wanted to complete it so that we have it in place for the next project or stop it. My sense is that we'd probably complete the parking ramp because we're going to build something out there. Even if it's just, quote unquote, just office or residential or something like that, it's going to need parking for a while until driverless cars come around and reduce our parking demand or whatever. Or we could convert the ramp. Again, it's going to be built so that it can be converted. So,
Mr. Hagan, something to add to that?
Mr. Mayor and Port President, members, and Councilmember Martin, yes, Shane is correct. There is no financial relationship in the financing between Mall of America and the financing of the water park. If the Mall of America changed ownership entities in the middle of the water park project, that has no relationship to the water park and its financing. So it's completely separate financing, as if it's a completely separate owner, because technically it is a very completely separate owner. Happens to be related upstream in 555's, the entities, but it's completely separate. Now the financing is the bond buyers are very interested in making sure this project gets complete. They will require performance and payment bonds. So irregardless of what happens, there will be performance and payment guarantees put in place by the builder, by Ryan Construction, that guarantees completion of this project. So the sureties have to be in place in order for us to sell the private financing, in order for us to sell the bonds. And it's really unrelated to Mall of America. Obviously, bond buyers that are buying water park investments, The institutional buyers are looking to Mall of America to drive traffic to their project, but it's truly their project, unrelated from a financing perspective to Mall of America.
That's helpful. Thank you.
You bet.
Do we have any Port Authority questions?
I do see we have a question, Councilmember D'Alessandro.
I have two questions really quickly, hopefully. Probably won't be. So quick question for Mr. Hagan. I just as a recap for residents who are maybe coming back to this 4 years later and didn't know, were there any other projects that 555 considered doing on this site? And what was the decision, and how did you come to determine that the most beneficial choice was a water park?
Mr. Mayor, members, Councilmember D'Alessandro, yes, as a matter of fact, we have gone through, David Lair and Greg Hollenkamp can tell you we're on master plan version probably 64 for the phase 2 sites, and Shane has seen most of them. We have tried a lot of different projects. Most recently was that we probably were the furthest down the road was a luxury development with a luxury hotel and a luxury wing. Mall of America, we simply couldn't get it financed. That project did not move forward. And that was probably 8 or 9 years ago. Since then, and actually even while that was happening, our focus has really been on what type of projects can we do to diversify ourselves from retail. So when Mall of America was first opened, we were about an 80-20 mix, 80% retail, 20% entertainment. Today, we're about 70-30 as we convert more retail space into entertainment and restaurants. Our project in New Jersey is closer to 50-50. It's actually 45% retail and 55% entertainment. And we love that mix, right? The more we can diversify of retail, I mean, retail is still extremely important to us, but it has to be a balance of world-class retail with world-class entertainment. And projects like the Waterpark in particular, I think really help us hit that balance. It's got to be a project that drives tourism. Again, we're not looking to add regular retail, and right at this point, we're not even looking to add retail. If we did, and as it was the luxury phase, it was really hitting a market segment, a retail segment that we don't hit very strongly today. And it was really geared at attracting luxury buyers really from across the country that would come here to the Midwest that today go to the East Coast or the West Coast to do their luxury shopping. So it was really still targeted to a tourist market as the water park, but certainly we're much more excited about the water park and what it can do in terms of total visitorship to Mall of America, in terms of total tourism driven to this market. I think the water park is a home run. It simply was just something we couldn't finance previously. There wasn't a vehicle or a public funding tool that allowed us to pursue this water park privately as we're doing today. That happened last year in the legislative session, the tool that we were given last year.
Thank you. A follow-up question, I guess, for us then. Am I correct, Shane, in that the money that we are talking about investment here is money that is required to be spent in this part of the city, correct? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, council members, Councilmember D'Alessandro, absolutely. So again, we're just using mall TIF on this project, and certainly that's money that's generated from the project itself and can only be statutorily used in the industrial development district that is South Loop. And then further than that, it's tied up in the development agreement that we executed in 2016 with the mall. But even if that development agreement didn't exist, it is statutorily dedicated to phases of Mall of America.
Phases of Mall of America. So we don't, what I'm trying to what I explained to someone today, for example, was that, this is a private developer who has access to these private, development areas, and we don't really get to tell them what they can and cannot do with the land. We can be partners in in making that the best we possibly can for the city, and in partnership, best for the residents, of course. And I think we're doing that, with this. But ultimately, it comes down to a 555 decision about what they want to do with this land. Is that a fair sum up?
Mr. Mayor, council members, Councilmember D'Alessandro, I think it's fair that they can do whatever they want with the land. It's also true that the council and the Port Authority in particular, because the Port Authority controls the TIF, that the Port Authority gets to decide how to invest the TIF. So if the mall wanted to go and build whatever the heck they want within the zoning out there tomorrow and didn't need the TIF to do it, they could do that. They go to the city council for entitlements and things like that. But if they want the Port Authority's collected TIF, then we need to have the same conversation that we're having here tonight.
Yeah, thanks for that. Only one other comment then, if you don't mind. I want to just thank you to Mr. Lair for the explicit sustainability improvements that people are considering. They're really, really important. There's some really cool, ETFE photovoltaic kind of mix. So when you think about solar, don't build your roof yet before you think about that, because there's some really cool stuff going on in Europe that you could take advantage of that would be integrated and such. There's also, when we think about parking and stuff like that, I'd love for us to be thinking about maybe the right thing to do for tourists is to do something really cool in terms of driving them in electric vans to and from the MSP airport, as opposed to requiring them to have rented a car and have a parking space. There's just some really creative opportunities for us, I think. Please keep doing what you're doing in that regard. The list was pretty impressive of the options you're considering. So thank you.
Councilmember D'Alessandro, I think there's one other point. I think one of the reasons that the mall is so excited about doing this is they've successfully done it for 30-some years in Canada, and they've also been, I think, very pleased with the performance at the American Dream. So this isn't something that is new to them in that sense. It's something that they've had experience, and they have shared the financials and things on the West End Park with us, and also with the operations of the American Dream Park, and they have been successful.
Council, unless there's anything additional, I see, Mr. President, I see Commissioner Hunt.
Thank you. Mr. Hagan, we did hear some more definitive response about the discount to City of Bloomington residents. Is there likely to be or not to be any restriction as to time of day or day of week, so they could go and enjoy that at any time, or might there be restrictions on that for citizens?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. President, members, and Commissioner Hunt, we haven't fully baked we're working on, our operations team is working on what they call the Bloomington Pass. And the Bloomington Pass is really a discounted annual pass to the water park, but it comes with discounts on food and beverage, merchandise, birthday parties, buddy passes. It also has access to special previews, early hours. So that's the kind of package that they're working on. We just haven't fully baked it yet. I think our commitment to Shane and to staff is we've shared with them kind of our ideas of where we're going. We want to work with Bloomington residents and staff as to what makes the most sense for Bloomington residents to kind of create this special pass. And I think our commitment to Shane and to others was, look, I don't know how this is all going to come together, and if it can't because of certain restrictions or problems with it, the discount will be no less than our current military discount to our military members, which is 25%. It's a very significant discount. So again, we're too early on. We haven't even brought on the full operations team yet that will be running this water park to make a definitive decision as what's best for this Bloomington discount, but it will be meaningful. That's our commitment to you. That's in our agreement with you, is that we will have a meaningful discount. We need to talk about it more, just like the sustainability items. Mm-hmm. We're just not that far into it yet, but as we do get into it, we want to have continued dialogue with the city on what makes the most sense and is most meaningful to Bloomington residents, and we'll be a great discount for Bloomington residents.
Thank you.
Councilmember Lohman?
Thank you, Mayor. And also, Councilmember De Los Santos, with your statements that you made, want to thank the the partnership, Kurt Hagen and Blair. One of the things I observed is from the Sustainability Commission meeting, some of the comments that were made there, you've integrated those comments into this presentation, and I'm not surprised, but very impressed that you're able to turn that around so quickly. And I do know that there's a great deal of a commitment to those items, and I know that you've had that opportunity to kind of come from the Edmonton project all the way to the Dream project, and then now this project. And what I wonder if, I asked this question at that point in time, I know one of the main concerns that was discussed at the Sustainability Commission, and a lot of other residents are concerned about, is that, water is a scarce resource. And I know you've laid out some items there. And I wonder if you could just, talk a little bit about the evolution in terms of where you started off with your first water park to where this would be. And I know, and I also want you to again talk about that lead opportunity that would come with this project, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Mr. Mayor and members and Councilmember Lohman. As David Lair said earlier, and you've heard me say before, we want to set the bar for water parks. LEED wants to work with us to set the bar for water parks. It doesn't exist today. You can't go to the LEED manual and find a water park category to get certified. They've committed to working with us to make that happen. That's very important to us. We know it's very important to the city of Bloomington. In terms of your question about, the West Edmonton, the World Water Park in the West Edmonton Mall is now almost 40 years old. That literally is the Model T of indoor water parks. It was the biggest water park in the world when it was built 40 years ago, and it's still running and doing very well. But the technology has come so far and so fast. I would say even up to 10 years ago, it hadn't changed a whole lot, but in the last 10 years, it's been amazing. The changes that have happened to pumps and filtration. I believe that our water consumption is something like 90% less than what we have up at West Edmonton Mall, just with the newness. We have the Tesla, they have the Model T, and it's literally almost the same difference you would see in a 40-year-old car versus a new car driving off the lot today. There's just things that just simply wasn't even thought of back then or available to them that are today. And it's changing very quickly. Even from our water park that just opened a year and a half ago in New Jersey, there are new products and pumps and filters out there that is just mind-boggling what you can do now. We're really excited about that, actually. And so I think it comes down to, our goal is to really work with you, work with the Sustainability Commission, and there's so many things we can do. And we want to work together and saying, okay, let's put these in a matrix and say these items have this kind of a carbon footprint reduction, this kind of a payback, and we can kind of work our way down this list. At some point, it stops making sense financially, but it still may make sense from a carbon footprint standpoint. We don't want to make that determination on our own. Again, I think that's where we want to sit with the Sustainability Commission, yourselves, being on that commission, and say, you know what, it would really be great if we included this, this, and this, but maybe these things aren't as important because we do still have a limited budget. It's not unlimited, but at some point you kind of hit that law of diminishing returns, and we want to work with you to kind of find that point. David, was there anything else I missed?
No, just a couple of things. The current markets are pretty volatile. We all are seeing this right now for gas prices at the pump. But the more we can build in really true long-term sustainability features, it'll just benefit for the long-term operations, but it's going to benefit generations to come. And that's a really important part of how can we get the most out of our investment right now so that it has redeeming and returns for a long period of time. One note, it's pretty common to see solar panels to have something between a 10 to 12 year payback. It's not that uncommon to see. That's a pretty long time. But with current energy prices, we're seeing those prices for the payback period to be 6 to 8 years. So, those things are really coming around as energy costs will continue to just rise on their own piece without having other geopolitical events occur.
Thank you both, and thank you, Mayor. Again, really appreciate that partnership, and I know we've got some challenges ahead. Hopefully, we can address those. If we decide to move forward with the project.
Council, any other questions? Any additional questions? Don't be shy. Just speak up. We've got a lot of screens going on right now. Very good. If I don't see anyone coming forward, I think next on our agenda is Mr. Dan O'Neill from the Bloomington Convention and Visitors Bureau, if I'm not incorrect. Carolyn, if we could find Mr. O'Neill and get him on board. There he is. I see. Good evening, Dan. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, members of the Port Authority. I'm Dan O'Neill, Vice President of Strategy and Sales for the Bloomington, Minnesota Convention and Visitor Bureau. Unfortunately, our CEO, Bonnie Carlson, is traveling, and I know she's very passionate about this project and moving forward, and has met with you and shown support from the Bureau. I just wanted to highlight a couple prepared notes. You should have received a memo from the Convention and Visitor Bureau that outlined our support from Bonnie. And in the December meeting, Bonnie did talk to you about the brand sentiment study that we commissioned with MMGY Global as we researched past and prospective visitors on the quality of Bloomington attractions, and how water parks are high on the visitors list. We actually asked questions to past Bloomington visitors and prospective Bloomington visitors about an indoor water park, and having it be the largest in the U.S., collection of pools and water slides. And what we found in that study, and she mentioned that in December, but it was really that it scored very high in influential prospective visitors. And it was the second most influential element on for travel. In addition to that, those that had households with children, the indoor water park would increase their interest in visitation. And of course, at the Convention and Visitor Bureau, our number one job is to inspire travel to Bloomington. So these are great indicators that this water park is going to be successful and continue to be a producer of room nights. As Kirk mentioned and showed the slide on the mega events, boy, we missed those days when we were hosting the Ryder Cup and the Super Bowl and the men's Final Four. And I think when I've been with the Bureau for over 14 years now, those were the most exciting times for the hospitality community. Those don't come in often. It's the day-to-day leisure traveler that continues to keep us moving. But those can bring a community together like never before. And I think we've seen occupancy levels at 90% for the Ryder Cup. For the Super Bowl, it was 95% occupancy. And that was a record in Bloomington. And then, of course, the NCAA was in the upper 90s. And I think it was a great correlation to really show that, having a water park is really like having two of those mega events during the year. And that's so important for our hotels. So we really feel it will be beneficial. Bloomington is a family-oriented, welcoming, and safe place. And I just wanted to thank you for your leadership and continuing to make Bloomington a competitive destination in travel and tourism, and really a leader in the nation. So thank you. We're very anxious for the project, and please let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Council, any questions of Mr. O'Neill?
Port Authority, any questions?
I see Councilmember D'Alessandro with a hand up. Councilmember D'Alessandro.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. I had just had one quick question. I know we did see the numbers that you recalled in the meeting back in December. I'm as we are close as we are to the Wisconsin Dells, I am wondering if you all have done any kind of compare contrast between the performance of the Dells over the years, as they publish those things through their Convention and Visitors Bureau, right, versus what we feel like we might be able to expect, and if that made you more confident in the project as a result. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember. I think with this brand sentiment study, we were looking more into the quality of current Bloomington attractions, and we didn't do a summary versus Wisconsin Dells particularly. What we do know about Wisconsin Dells is they have over 20 different water parks, so it's a very different as far as a destinations sell compared to what we do. Hopefully that answers your question.
Council, additional questions?
Any port questions?
Very good. Council, officially, the next step here is officially a public hearing, and this is a city council public hearing. And it would be a public hearing on the $55 million tax increment authorized in the spending plan to provide improvements, loans, interest rate subsidies, or assistance in any form to private development, and specifically to finance a portion of the cost of the construction and development of an indoor water park. That is what our public hearing is on, and I will open our public hearing now. Is there any members of the public who wish to speak as part of the public hearing here in the council chambers? We have no one in the council chambers at this time. Riza, do we have anyone on the phone who wishes to speak in the public hearing regarding the tax increment, the $55 million tax increments authorized in spending?
No one wants to speak. You may continue.
Last call for anybody here in the council chambers to speak on the public hearing. Council, I see no one coming forward, and there's no one on the phone line wishing to speak in our public hearing. I would look for a motion to close tonight's public hearing.
So moved. Councilmember Lohman.
Second.
We've got a motion by Councilmember Lohman, second by Councilmember D'Alessandro to close the public hearing on tonight's issue. Hearing no further council discussion on this. Carolyn.
Carter.
Aye.
Coulter.
Aye.
D'Alessandro.
Aye.
Lohman.
Aye.
Martin. Nelson.
Aye.
And Bussey.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0, closing the public hearing. So now we're in the point of the evening of discussion. So I know we've been asking questions as we've gone along here, but would like to hear from obviously the city council, and I know the president would like to hear from the Port Authority as well. Thoughts on this, on all parts of this, the redevelopment agreement, the purchase and option agreement, the TIF loan agreement, and ultimately the spending plan.
Mr. Mayor? We release the operator.
Very good. I will do that. Thank you for reminding me. Riza, thank you much for your help this evening, but we're past our point of public engagement, so you can have the rest of the night off. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you, you too. Thank you for the reminder. Appreciate it. Council, questions, comments, thoughts on this? Or?
Port Authority, questions, comments?
I see Councilmember Carter. Councilmember Carter.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is very basic, but I think, we've been living in this conversation in this world for some of us decades, but there are residents watching tonight who may not really understand how TIF works. And so I know that it can get kind of complicated, but I'm wondering if you could just give like a TIF 101 so that people who are listening tonight kind of understand the basics of TIF and what we're doing. since it is a different way of financing versus like a bond or any other way. So, thank you.
Mr. Ruthing?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, Councilmember Carter. I'll do my best. So because TIF is somewhat complicated, but I think some important tenets to note are that the TIF, tax increment financing, is a word that's used to describe the property taxes or a portion of the property taxes that are generated by a project for use in that project. And so there is a but-for test that's required by statute. And the but-for test for the use of TIF means that the project wouldn't move forward but for the TIF investment. And that's certainly true with this water park. It was certainly true with the original Mall of America and the many phases of Mall of America. The Port Authority is in a unique position where you have actual cash balances to reinvest into mall projects. All the mall projects, Radisson Blue, Phase 1C on the north side, IKEA, et cetera, have been done without having to take on additional debt. And that's because the project has generated sufficient funds to do so. And again, you're in that position today. You don't have to borrow if you don't want to, but you may want to borrow for a portion of those committed public improvements in order to be able to use the spending plan tool for other projects. But TIF is the property taxes that's generated, or a portion of the property taxes generated by the project for use on the project itself. That's really what it is. And property taxes in Minnesota are incredibly complicated, and commercial taxes are different than residential taxes, and how TIF is generated by the project and then recycled for use on that same project is really what TIF is. Using the property taxes generated by the project for the project. Is that okay? Thanks.
Council, additional questions, comments?
Port Authority, additional questions, comments? Well, Mr. Mayor, I think that Shane and others have done a very good job of explaining the whole thing.
I would agree. I see Commissioner Lunds with his
Okay,
hand.
Commissioner Luntz.
Unmute. Thank you, Chairman Erickson. I would ask if the port would bear with me a little bit. I got cut off at the last meeting, December 9th, and wasn't able to really explain my thought process and votes on this. So this might get a little lengthy, and I would ask your patience on it. But this is kind of my view on this. And you know, I'm a dirt bricks and mortar guy. I've been my whole life. I'm real estate, and that's what I know. That's what I've done. And I'm going to reiterate right from the start with saying that I have very high regard for the Mall of America company, T5. It's real estate developers, owners, managers, leasing professionals, and innovators. They absolutely amaze me at times what they do, what they can do, and what they've done. And they're developers, and they have their development model, and developers have to develop. The developer, who's taking a photo? The developers, their model is to build a mega mall, which they've been very successful at. They can do office buildings, lodging, and they do water parks. And now it's Bloomington's turn to get the water park and propose it, and hopefully it'll work out like the other ones have. I, in my heart, believe we're different. We're different because we have 11,842 lakes with water amenities all over the place. If you don't have a cabin, your brother, your sister, your neighbor down the block does, and they invite you there. That includes boating, fishing, jet skiing, all those other things. Raves, slides, all the things that go with water, go with water recreation. And by definition, when a property requires TIF, it's not feasible in the market sense. That's why the TIF is needed. Okay, it's one thing to put TIF into housing, affordable housing, SIC optical. On the other hand, to me, it's another thing to put TIF and equity TIF into a water park. To me, the water park also does not meet what the goals are for the South Loop, which were stated earlier on one of Shane's exhibits. It's to transform the South Loop suburban to urban. Okay. I've never seen a ginormous water park. So, you know, I can't react to how they operate, what they look like on the hoof. In real estate, the first thing you do and the easiest thing you do is you go look at the property. Well, I haven't had the opportunity to do this. Okay. But what it is, when it's done, is a land intensive, horizontal, highly special purpose use property with very, very few readaptive uses if unfortunately it were to fail or not succeed. And I don't know how that fits into the guideline of transforming South Loop from suburban to urban. To me, that's another suburban use. So with full knowledge of all the implications here, including the expo and everything else, I'm fully aware of those. I thought my new council person, Delisandro, brought up a good question on the on Wisconsin Dells. So I did a little research there too. That's the largest agglomeration of water parks in the world. It's 220 miles, 3 hours and 12 minutes from Bloomington. It's the water capital of the world. They have 8,000 hotel rooms, right up there with Bloomington size. So I think those are facts. And on top of that, of all Minnesota's lakes, Wisconsin Dells being near, and the fact that so many communities have large water recreation facilities. And by Wisconsin Dells also has a number of indoor facilities. They're not all outdoor. Okay. So that's another thing to think about. But, you know, it doesn't meet the goal for me. And that's pretty much where I'm coming from. I'm very interested in the expo. I would like to see that come. It's a shame that they weren't linked together like this in my book. If we were guaranteed of getting the BIE selection process for the 2027 World's Fair, I think my view might be completely different. But pretty much the water park would be pretty much a done thing, with a lot of risk to the citizens, the city of Bloomington, still on whether the expo will ever come here. I've also spent quite a bit of time over the numerous years this has been out there, talking with friends, relatives, neighbors, church members, other Bloomington people, asking what they think of a water park and whether they'd use it. And I got very little receipt.
Commissioner Lunds, we just lost your audio. Commissioner Lunds? And now I'm afraid you've frozen up.
Oh, no.
We wait for Commissioner Lunds to try to get back on here, and we'll let him continue. I think we heard the points he was making and the stance he was taking regarding this project, and we'll see if we can get him back on here in just a moment. While we're waiting, Council, Port, any additional any comments? Any folks want to chime in on this?
Mr. Mayor?
Commissioner Hunt?
I'll piggyback a little bit on what Commissioner Lund said, and nothing but tremendous support for the mall and the consistent improvements and upkeep of the mall. And many of you know I've been was involved with Planning Commission at the very beginning stages of this, so nothing but support, and it's been phenomenal to see the continued growth and so forth and everything. So frequent visitor, frequent shopper, and it's a project I love dearly. But I'm also a very conservative banker at heart. I would very much love to support the idea. I still can't get my arms around the water park. I'm hoping I'm wrong in the long run, but I appreciate hearing the number of different, I like the change into the private funding, but that said, again, TIF funding is kind of an abnormal use for that. But I I'm still concerned about the success of the project as a whole. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I like the different mitigating factors that have gone into this. At the end of the day, when I look at a loan too, is how do I get repaid? And what's the next best use? And that continues to be, to me, a water park, a special purpose property, as Mr. Lunds also said. We're kind of in the same mind from that standpoint, but that's the big concern. What can you do beyond that? And that keeps coming back. And again, I'm hoping I'm wrong on that. But I again, nothing but the best regards for the development and the monitoring and the upkeep of the property. But I just have a very difficult time, as from the beginning of this, with the water park itself.
Thank you, Commissioner Hunt. We had Commissioner Luntz came back in, and now I think he's gone out again.
So I see Councilmember Carter, and then Councilmember Lohman, Councilmember Coulter, and then I think Commissioner Peterson also had his hand up. So there's your lineup. Councilmember Carter.
Thank you, Mayor. So first I want to thank Kurt and his team, and I want to thank Port Authority staff and everyone who's been involved in these conversations over the past 4 years. I've only been involved for 2.5 years now, so I feel like I'm still very young in these conversations. But it is very apparent that a lot of really critical conversations and thoughtfulness have gone into this proposal. And I also really appreciate the fact that, I very, very clearly see our feedback in what's being put forward today. And so the three big concerns that I've heard from residents over the past several years, and it started when I was door knocking, and I still get questions. One is the risk to taxpayers. The second is the environmental impacts. And then the third is really accessibility and affordability for Bloomington residents. And so for me, as I look at this project, I think that you've done a really good job of addressing those three big concerns, at least that I've heard about. And so I will be supporting this proposal tonight, this vote tonight. I mean, for me, at the end of the day, something has to be built there. Something will be built there. And I want it to be something that's really going to support the industries that are already driving 13 to 16% of our tax base. The other things that I want to kind of mention as I think about this project is I'm really, really excited that it's family friendly. Just coming back from the expo, I was blown away by how many families were there, how many little kids. And to give residents the opportunity and others across the region to go somewhere year-round where they can be active, they can be having fun, and then they can go over to the mall and do the same. I think it's a really great opportunity for our residents and for people around the region and even the world. And I totally hear Commissioner Lunz's point around, people have access to lakes in Minnesota, but for 9 months out of the year, they don't. And for a family like mine, I can tell you, and I've talked to other families asking them about this water park project, and people are excited about it. They're excited to have a warm place to go in the winter with their kids, and that's why I've pushed so hard on the Bloomington resident discount too, because I want to make sure that our residents can go to this water park. I will say two ideas. If it doesn't work out, you could turn it into like a big year-round farm or aquaponics facility. And then from an equity perspective, just an idea, you could partner with the YMCA and do once a month free swimming lessons for low-income residents or people in the region, and then give them a free day pass. So just some ideas there. My brain's already going. So I'm very, very excited about this project. Again, really, really appreciate staff and the T5 team, all the work that you've done to mitigate risk, the sustainability issues, and then, of course, the accessibility and the affordability for Bloomington residents. So.
Mr. Mayor, I wonder if, because we have Commissioner Luntz back, if we can have him finish his comments and then get in the queue.
Very good. We got a queue behind you, Commissioner Lunz. We'll let you finish up if you could.
I'm not exactly sure where I was lost. All of a sudden I looked up and everybody's shining face was gone, and I knew I was talking in a vacuum. So maybe a little help there. One thing I did want to say is I was a little bit surprised seeing the performers going forward are stronger than they were a couple of years ago. First of all, I don't know how anyone, I read the first pro formas that came out extensively. I thought they were optimistic with 7% annual income growth for the first years, 5% annual expenses. So there's a margin there. I don't know how you really go about putting a feasibility study together nowadays on such a special purpose property within months of the first pandemic in 100 years. So I'm a little just surprised by that. And I really am dubious as to how much faith I'd want to put in that. But we're talking about 100, 110 million, whatever, to go into this. And is this really highest and best use? It's a feasible use with TIF. Is it the optimum use, which is what you really do in developing property and in creating the best real estate you can? So I guess I'll wind up there. Like I said, I don't know where I was cut off. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Commissioner Luntz.
Thank you, Commissioner. Councilmember Lohman and Councilmember Coulter. Councilmember Lohman.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Port, and also Mall of America and the Convention Bureau. And I think that Councilmember Carter really kind of put it succinctly and well. And as I look at this, what I imagine, when I was just a young kid growing up here in the city, and when I heard about the mall for the very first time, I was very excited to get the opportunity to walk through, and we've seen what it's done. And certainly all the hard work and all the things that had to go into that, and that was a close decision at that point in time too. And there were certainly those folks who were very concerned. Certainly when I was knocking on doors, I heard those items as well. I think the case has been made here tonight for various reasons. And I look forward to supporting this particular proposal that's before us. I can only imagine all those young kids and families who will have the opportunity to be able to enjoy and recreate in this particular facility. And it's also going to be a statement about where Bloomington kind of stands on sustainability and how we can work as a partnership across industry to be able to move this particular issue forward. And so I am very excited at that prospect and that opportunity to be working with a number of other leaders here to be able to do that. It's important to have those partnerships, not only as it relates to that, but also around labor. And so I'm looking forward to those partnerships as we continue to march forward. I really, truly believe that our days that are ahead of us are very exciting. And I'm looking forward to that opportunity to be able to support this particular project as written. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Coulter.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, a number of the points that I had planned to make have already been made, and I want to echo Councilmember Lohman. I think Councilmember Carter hit hit those points very well. And I certainly, when I was running last year, heard many of the same concerns, many of the same questions. And I would say, on the whole, I think those questions, those concerns have been addressed to my satisfaction. This is not the deal I would have designed by myself. But I think we're all glad that I was not the one designing this deal by myself. And I would say it's probably not the ideal use that I would put forward. But I think great strides have been made, in particular, as others have mentioned, on sustainability and the financials. I want to particularly call out with regards to the questions that I asked earlier about using solely Mall of America TIF and not the South Loop Development Fund and making that whole. I think that's a much better approach, both in terms of respecting taxpayers and also just the nature of what those dollars are used for. I am still concerned about the potential of labor disputes and work stoppages and disappointed that those conversations have not progressed as far as I would like. And I would add that I think the conversations around this over the last few years have raised some serious concerns for me about our relationship, the relationship between the city and the Mall of America. That being said, I have never questioned that it is beneficial to the city government of the city of Bloomington and to our residents that the Mall of America continue to be a strong economic contributor. I think, you know, we've all seen the dollar figures. We know what the Mall of America means to our city operations and by extension, the pocketbooks of folks who live in and own businesses here in Bloomington. And I think this project will help to maintain that. I think this is also a key piece to other projects down the line, as we've discussed, that have a lot of potential for really exciting opportunities, really exciting growth in the South Loop. I think, you know, the points that Commissioners Lunds and Hunt made, you know, they are professionals. They know what they're talking about, and I can't say those are not still concerns of mine. So it is not without reservations that I'm supporting this. I would like to see some effort yet to address the concerns that I have raised. But I think what it comes down to for me was a point that Commissioner Peterson made at a previous meeting, that, you know, it's not as though the choice is this or some ideal use or this or nothing. It's this or whatever comes next. Something is going to be developed there. And I think at the end of the day, this is, while far from perfect, this is a good use. It's going to be beneficial to the city, to our residents, and to ensuring the continued strength of the mall. So I will be supporting it.
Commissioner Peterson?
I had a little of my talk stolen by Councilmember Coulter there, repeating what I said previously, but I probably don't need to repeat what I said previously. But I do want to say...
You could always quote yourself, Steve.
I can always quote myself. There we go. That's a self-referential thing. So I don't know where that ends up ending. And I think the key thing to keep in mind here is that, you know, back when the original mall project ended up happening, we had this really unique combination of retail and entertainment uses that occurred at that location that was really singular in the metro area. And the mall owners were really visionaries in that regard. And you know, with the combination of the pandemic and the change in how retail works, that combination still makes a lot of sense. It's just the ratio of uses is going to be different in the future than it has been now. And Kurt talked about that a little bit in the conversation here. And so whenever you have something that's entertainment driven like this, to a certain extent, you need to kind of keep renewing what you have going on there. And that's really what's happening as part of this project, is that we're getting a major new attraction at that location. For many people, it'll be a reason to stay another day or two in that particular location, beyond where they might be staying for being in the going to the theme park, for example. And so this is for entertainment oriented districts, this is a common progression that occurs. And we just have to look a little bit to the south, for example, at Valley Fair, at some of the entertainment uses in Shakopee, where you see on a regular basis conversations going on around expansions of those sorts of uses. You know, if I remember right, there's an amphitheater proposal that's being discussed at the Canterbury location. That's a change in use to freshen an area up, make a new use there. And this sort of project is that same sort of project. You know, is the project structured exactly the way I would do it if I had complete control? Kind of like Councilmember Coulter, the answer to that is no. But does this project meet my personal bar for a project that should go forward? The answer is yes. And so I intend to support it today.
Councilmember D'Alessandro.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank you all for bearing with me as I came up to speed on this project, and as mentioned earlier, take advantage of a lot of hard work by other people, including my predecessor. So I appreciate that very much, and so take my comments for what they're worth, which is a brand new set of eyes put on a project that you all have been bearing with for quite some time. I don't have kids, and I will not ever be in public in a bathing suit. So, so I'm not necessarily the demographic you're going for here. But so I can't think of my own personal circumstances in the way that, some of our council members with young kids can about how their life experience will be with this. So I take that into consideration as a data point for myself because I don't have that experience, right? So I want to count on people who have told me that this is something that they would be excited about. I think ultimately when I think about the vision for this, there were two pieces of the puzzle for me then. Of course, the sustainability stuff. I think about Expo and it coming to this area, and I'm curious about what the millions of visitors to that will think about us having just finished a water park in 2024. I don't know what they're going to say, whether that's an achievement and they're excited about it, or whether it's another example of America just consuming resources at a rate that's higher than our what we should be considering the amount of population we, represent. I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see. I say that as something that I think we should keep in mind and something that we actually have the opportunity, right, to demonstrate that you can dream big and have big, bold ideas and do new, cool things, and they don't always have to come at the expense of exploitation of our natural resources, or for that matter, our human resources, right? So, as we think about this, we want to make sure that the things we actually design into this over the coming summer, reflect the vision we want the world to see 3 years later when they come to Expo. I think it isn't going to hurt us if we do that and then they don't come. It isn't going to be a bad thing, right? So, I'd put that out there. The other thing, of course, that I want to mention is, we talk a lot about the economics of the Mall of America and how it has truly an impact on Bloomington as a whole. When I hear people, they wonder why the rest of the city doesn't look like that is true. And so I want to put out there that, whether this is mostly for the council's reflection, what do we need to do to make sure that people know that when we continue to develop in this area, and not all of the money flows into the rest of Bloomington, but the stuff that does, the stuff that was on that great chart that Mr. Hagan presented earlier, that they can see the impact of that in their city. And I know that we probably hide it a little bit because we're using it for all the ground level stuff that's important around the city. But maybe we do that differently in the future so people can really understand that, right? So those are my musings. I'm very with a lot of humility, like I said, and a lot of deference to the people come before. I'll be supporting this, and I hope that we can all look at this, 10 years from now, and we've taken a lot of the business from the Wisconsin Dells. In fact, I think that would be great. I would say I was a pleasure to see to Mayor Bussey do his best Karnak impersonation at the Minneapolis Chamber, Regional Chamber. The support of the business community in the region is very strong for this project. They see a real value in it. There's a couple of great jokes about it. In fact, the Dave Letterman top 10 list in the spirit of the late night show, theme for the event was the top 10 reasons to build the water park in Bloomington. So, and bring Expo to Bloomington, actually. So it was really fun. And, so I think people really do get it in that community as well. So I take that as part of my reasons for supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Do we have any other Port Authority comments? Well, Mr. Mayor, I think we're about to that point.
I think we are as well. I've got to apologize, folks. We're not seeing hands going up. If you're pushing the hands going up, it's not coming through on our screens right here, and I apologize for that. So again, don't be shy. So Councilmember Martin and then Councilmember Nelson. So Councilmember Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. Just real briefly, I won't go over everything folks have said. I'm extremely glad throughout my time on council, it's obviously Mall of America and the hospitality industry it helps to support have been a huge economic driver. A lot of the programs and initiatives I've been most excited about that we've accomplished, fueling a lot of our affordable housing efforts, a lot of our public health services, keeping property tax is low for folks on fixed incomes. Obviously, that's all enormous. I'm just thinking as we move forward, something I grow increasingly concerned about is, as Councilmember D'Alessandro just mentioned, drawing a very direct line for our residents as to how these giant, for lack of a better word, very flashy projects fund those services, fund those initiatives. And I don't know if that's right away, as this thing gets moving, as soon as we can in the process, dedicate some of these revenue streams coming out of a water park to, say, our Affordable Housing Trust Fund or our first-time homebuyer assistance or potential small business center, but just make it really explicit, because I worry that while the geo-fenced funding that we have for South Loop is an astonishing tool to make some really, really earth-shattering projects like this possible, while that's really terrific, it's having a corrosive effect on the community because we can move mountains to get a project like this done. We can come up with $100-some-odd million in TIF financing to help make it happen for good reason, again, for those reasons I just outlined. But then we have to turn around and ask residents for a half-cent sales tax increase for mission-critical facilities like public health and a community center, the ice garden. So I think moving forward, just helping folks understand from the outside of this project how this is impacting their backyard and improving their lives in the community, especially when, even with a resident discount, I still don't know if a ticket's going to be in the budget for a lot of families with multiple kids. And over the longer term, really starting to look at what point is this neighborhood developed to the point where we can advocate for removing some of this geofencing? And I'm sure those will be complicated conversations to try and spread some of that jump-starting wealth a little more clearly and in a little more straightforward way across the city. So I'm happy to support this today, but I don't know how many of these mega projects we can use geofenced funding for while we're having to have tough conversations about financing on basic projects elsewhere in the city.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to be very brief, hopefully, because I'm sure you probably can barely hear me. I support this project and I've been very apprehensive about it, but when it comes to what's the best use of a property, I think the property owners have come forward with that. The question in my mind is the city involvement on it, and providing infrastructure and things like that makes sense to me. The equity portion has been always problematic for me, but I recognize that the state legislature has provided that funding. It's not just Bloomington TIF, it's a regional TIF as well as regional authorization for this. The state legislature, in my mind, has essentially directed us to do some things to help in this area, and I think that's important to recognize on this project. Again, I don't want to second guess the actual owners of the property on what is the highest and best use of that property. I also think that when we look at what the impact to the city is, from my perspective, it has always been about community development and looking at what we can do to attract regional tournaments and groups and things like that to Bloomington to utilize this facility, the mall, our restaurants, our shops, all of those types of things within the community. Because I think this is bigger than just, does this specific water park support itself, which I think clearly the 555 believes it does. I think the numbers show that it does. But I think that when we look beyond that, when we have groups coming for a fireman's tournament, or we have groups coming for to go to a hockey tournament at Big, where else would you want to go in the winter but Bloomington, where we have an indoor water park, an indoor theme park, shopping, restaurants, all of that type of stuff. This is a huge community development project that has tentacles way beyond just the project in and of itself. And that's what I'm excited about. And I want to see how we can continue to leverage that beyond just what we're looking at here. I also want to echo Councilmember Martin's point about the geofence funds and how we might look at that throughout the community. I want to echo my colleagues' questions about how we utilize this to benefit the entire community. And so, again, I said I'd be short. I hope you heard what I said. And I really appreciate this. And I really appreciate 555's work on this. I know I have been very critical at certain points in this process, and I think we're at a good spot here to move this forward. And like I said earlier, I'm looking forward to getting my swimsuit out and going swimming at some point here. So.
Thank you, Councilmember. And actually, we heard you as well in this last few minutes as we have all night. So I don't know where you're driving now, but you're in a good spot.
I will give all the recognition to Steve Peterson for telling me to turn my headphone around. Apparently, I had it on backwards.
I wouldn't admit that if I were you, Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, I didn't admit that. Erase that part of the video.
We'll do that.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you. Council, anything additional?
Port, anything additional?
Councilmember Peterson, is that an old hand or a new hand that you have up? It's an old hand, okay. I just want to add, I appreciate everybody's comments and the diverse points of view and the different directions that people are coming at this with. I really do. I think it's an important conversation for us to have. To look at it from a community development, an economic development standpoint, from a standpoint of how it's going to benefit all of our communities, to look at the big flashiness, as Councilmember Martin brought up, from a labor perspective, as Councilmember Coulter. I mean, there's a lot of pieces to this, and I appreciate the discussion that we've had. Commissioner Lunds, Commissioner Hunt, the perspectives that you bring, I appreciate that as well. Without repeating other folks' comments, I have said before, and I still believe, there is no doubt in my mind this is going to be a roaring success. I really believe that is going to be the case. And I think that's important to say, and I think that's important to hope for the future of the Mall of America and ultimately for the future of Bloomington, because of the economic impact that the mall does have and the tax base implication that the mall has. Without repeating everybody else, the final perspective that Councilmember D'Alessandro, I think, did touch on is the fact that the importance that this is, that this will be for the region, for the entire Twin Cities. As we look around us and as we come out of the pandemic and as we look at some of the issues with some of our neighbors here in the Twin Cities, this is an opportunity, I think, for Bloomington to lead in a lot of ways of moving the Twin Cities forward and to try and continue to draw important hospitality and tourism events like we have seen being used so successfully, and we referenced a few earlier with the Super Bowl and Ryder Cup and so on. And so to see Bloomington moving forward with this, to see 555 moving forward and acknowledging not only from their business standpoint, but from a sustainability standpoint, both sustainability environmentally and economically, is impressive to see. And I think as we put this together with the work that Bloomington and the region is doing regarding the World Expo, when we look at the work that is being done in some of the other economic development and the development that we're seeing, for example, with the SICK Corporation, I think this is just very impressive for a city of 90,000 to be bringing bringing this much oomph to what the Twin Cities needs to continue to move forward and to move forward out of this pandemic. So. Thank you all for your perspective. Thanks to our legal staff over the past 13 years, my goodness, or the 13 meetings, 4 years, 13 meetings on all of this. Mr. Hagan, Mr. Lair, your input, and of course, Shane, outstanding work on all of this to pull it forward and to move things along. So, Mr. Rudling?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't want to interrupt you, but when you were done, I just wanted to add to that the staff commitment from our legal team to Becky Schindler, to Jason Schmidt, Mark Reichel, assessing, our municipal advisor. The whole team has worked very diligently over the past months on this project, and regardless if it's approved or not, they just deserve a lot of credit. I wanted to make sure they were mentioned as well.
Agreed. Hear, hear.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think we're ready to call the votes.
We have two motions for each, the City Council and for the Port Authority. Council, I would look for action. You have the motions, I believe, standing by. On the screen in front of you, we have the two motions to be considered by the City Council. I would look for action, Council.
Mayor, I'd be happy to make that motion.
Councilmember Lohman.
Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution approving a redevelopment agreement with the Port Authority of the City of Bloomington, Mall of America Waterpark Owners LLC, and MOAC Land Holdings LLC, and the purchase and options agreement between the Port Authority of the City of Bloomington and Delta Metro Lands LLC, and authorizing the execution of documents in connection therewith.
Second.
We've got a motion by Councilmember Lohman, a second by Councilmember Carter to adopt the resolution as stated. Any further council discussion on this? Hearing none. Carolyn.
Carter.
Aye.
Coulter.
Aye.
D'Alessandro.
Aye.
Lohman.
Aye.
Martin. Nelson.
Aye.
Bussey.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Councilmember Lohman.
Mayor, I'll move to adopt a resolution approving a spending plan for certain tax increment finance districts located within Industrial Development District Number 1, South Loop, and authorizing the execution of documents in connection therewith.
Second.
And a motion by Councilmember Lohman, a second by Councilmember Carter to adopt the resolution approving a spending plan as stated. No further council discussion. Ms. Lane.
Carter.
Aye.
Coulter.
Aye.
D'Alessandro.
Aye.
Lohman.
Aye.
Martin. Martin.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Bussey.
Aye.
7-0.
Motion carries 7-0.
And I would entertain then a motion for the Port Authority. We have the first motion. Does any Port Authority member want to make that?
I'll move that first motion.
Okay, the motion is made by Commissioner Peterson. Do you want me to read that for the record, or should we just?
I think the lawyers are always happier when we read them for the record, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll move the motion to adopt the resolution approving a redevelopment agreement with the City of Bloomington, MOAWP Owner LLC, and MOAC Land Holdings LLC, and a purchase and option agreement with Delta Metro Lands LLC, and authorizing the execution of documents in connection therewith.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Not. Carolyn, you want to call the roll?
Bussey.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye.
Hunt.
No.
Lunds, no.
Peterson.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye. Motion carries 4-2. And then we have the second motion. I would entertain that. Commissioner Peterson.
Mr. Chair, I'll
make
move that we adopt the resolution approving a spending plan for certain tax increment financing districts located within Industrial Development District Number 1, South Loop, and authorizing the execution of documents in connection therewith.
Wow, that's
Second.
pretty good.
Yeah, that was very fast. Second.
We have a motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Not. Carolyn, do you want to call the roll?
Bussey.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye.
Hunt.
No.
Lunds.
No.
Peterson.
Aye.
And Erickson.
Aye. Motion carries 4-2.
Well, there you have it. And Mr. Rudling, you kind of laid out next steps for us as what we would look at next. Negotiations continuing, planning underway over the next 2 to 6 months, and ideally, hopefully, in the ground sometime in late summer.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's the rough schedule, and we'll be back in front of these boards again another time for those details.
I'm sure we will. Mr. Hagan, congratulations.
Thank you so much, council members and port commissioners. I really appreciate it. Look forward to moving this forward.
So, Mr. Mayor, I think we've got some more items on the agenda.
We're almost halfway done now. And next up on our agenda is item 3.2, which is regarding the residential number 4 at the Bloomington Central Station. Mr. Rudling.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, and Port Authority President and Commissioners. So we have here tonight, and I will share a slide deck related to this project as well. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so tonight what we have is a project that you've heard before. It's in a similar state, a little bit further along actually than the Waterpark project that we just considered. And so this is the BCS residential phase 4, which is the next project that would include the grocery store. So the Council and Port Authority approved a term sheet on May 4 of 2021 related to this project. The pandemic continued to provide the project challenges as it relates to construction, materials and labor, and increasing costs and tying down the equity for the project. But we're here tonight. The developer has completed most of those items and is close to a financial closing. We still have some documents that need to be negotiated and executed, but they're even more pedestrian than what we call the ancillary agreements. I'm talking about easements and things like that we have a form for. But this developer is McGuff, and they're really close to being able to close this project. So what we've got for you tonight is a set of agreements that would consummate that deal. And again, very, very close to the term sheet that the Council and Port approved on May 4 of 2021. So we'll go through that. But again, South Loop plan goals. The BCS master plan, we've seen a number of projects to date. Those are listed there. I won't go into the details. The master plan has the most recent project, the Fenley, just north of the light rail and east of the park, is leasing up and leasing up well. And then the phase 4 of the residential, which doesn't have a fancy name yet, would be built west of the park. So we have $415 million worth of work completed to date. Another 600 million planned to happen. We do have a TIF district here that is a multi-phase project, and there's an important difference between the TIF district at the mall and the TIF district at Bloomington Central Station, and that is the mall is a pre-1990 TIF district, which has different rules than all the TIF districts after 1990. And it requires you to build a project and comply with what's a 5-year rule, which works well, and it's well intended for single-phase projects, but does not work well for multi-phase projects like the Bloomington Central Station project. And so if we have other projects that are coming in the pipeline after that would start after 2026, we have to go back to the legislature and ask for a change again. We've been there many times now with BCS asking for that change and have been successful with extensions. They don't change the life of the district or anything like that. It just tweaks one of the TIF rules. But again, zooming in a little bit further, the project west of the park again, similar type of construction. They call these Texas Keys, I think, where you basically have wings of the project extending out from a central spot where the parking is laid out. And on this project, the grocery store would be on the northeast corner of it. Zooming in a little more, you can see it there. It does have grocery and liquor. It's 14,500 square feet, which is a medium to small size grocery store, but it's been a long time goal of these boards to get that there. It would have a number of courtyards similar to the other projects that sit on the BCS site. Here's some renderings of what it would look like. Again, with grocery as the key component. So facts and figures, if you will, 402 units, grocery 14,500 square feet. It would comply with the city's opportunity housing ordinance, 36 units at 60% AMI. Total project cost $125 million. The public investment of present value coming only from TIF from BCS, with about half of it from TIF from the project and half of it from the larger BCS project itself, but no other funding. 22.9 million in present value. We've performed the needs analysis and negotiated the recapture agreement. The only maybe unique piece of this project is the recapture agreement as it relates to the grocery store, and we'll go through that here in a minute. But the needs analysis, the project does need the subsidy in order to move forward based on these 4 things. These are in the council materials. The affordable units are much more expensive to provide versus the city's, the other option a developer could choose, which is the fee in lieu. It's just an interesting phenomenon in Edina. The projects that are getting built up there, they have almost all of them have paid their fee in lieu, and now Edina is sitting on a fairly sizable sum of money to build affordable housing, but they're not being provided in the units. And I think that's one thing that we've done well in Bloomington, is to try to get those units actually constructed instead of having money to build units, which is sometimes hard. The rent, again, the rent is a little bit lower here than in some of our neighboring communities, and a little bit lower than some of the other projects that have better views or are better located. So that's a challenge. Construction costs, we've talked about. Acoustical considerations in South Loop certainly exist, and they increase cost on the project, mostly due to plane noise. And then public infrastructure. So there's a number of roads next to this project that don't exist today. And in a lot of these other projects, you have the roads already, and so that adds to the financial need for the project. And then certainly the grocery is by far the biggest component, on a kind of dollars per square foot that needs subsidy in order to get off the ground. And then we have this complicated recapture to recapture any additional funds beyond normal profits that the grocery store would get. So on the apartment side, it's a waterfall, not a simple NOI calculation. We spent a lot of time working on this back on the Fenley project, and we're doing the same type of recapture with this waterfall concept for the apartment component of the project, although we've lowered the threshold down to 105% of the pro forma, meaning if they make the pro forma and make an additional 5% above that, we start recapturing. And then the grocery is a totally different type of recapture. It's based on their EBITDA or net operating income, earning before income taxes and depreciation. And then we have flexible parking.
Really? Oh.
Then there's the sustainability component, among others, that's included with this project. Again, for almost every project that the Port has invested in a long time, we want to make sure that we're doing things with the parking as sustainably as possible. And so again, on this project, it's constructed so that levels of the parking can be removed if parking demand goes down, and units would be built on top. This is very similar to what we worked on with the Fenley project. Doesn't add a lot of cost, but the forethought here can save some money down the road if things change. Public investment graph. Again, this is just slightly tweaked from the May 4, 2021 meeting, but it is a relatively high amount of public investment, and that's in large part due to the grocery public investment. Project schedule. Here we are on March 9, considering approval of the development agreements. They'd start construction here in the second quarter and then be open for the first phase of occupancy in Q3 of 2023. And so included in the packet is agreements outline, which you should be getting used to at this point because we always do this. But I'll highlight a few key things from the agreements. So McGuff will maintain about somewhere between 5 and 10% owner of the equity portion of the project. Again, grocery with a liquor component. The assistance is provided via a PAYGO note. So the risk of the TIF stream not happening is borne by the developer. There's no outside money going into the project, and only do we pay on the TIF PAYGO note if the TIF exists. So it's an extremely low risk investment from the city's perspective. The risk is all borne by the developer. You've heard that a lot tonight, but that's something that we're very focused on with all of these port projects. And so roughly half of the TIF comes from the TIF generated from the BCS4 building itself, and the other half of the TIF comes from the other BCS TIF projects, but no other funding outside of that. And then the public investment uses, as outlined there, land, parking, and then other exterior public improvements. And so again, these red areas are the roads that haven't been built. The green area is landscape corridor north of the light rail, and then the parking structure sits right in the middle. And so we have a secondary developer agreement between the City Port, BCS LLC, the larger parent McGuff entity, and then the smaller BCS for Housing LLC. One of the things that we hadn't studied before the hearing notice deadline hit was whether we needed to have a hearing related to business subsidy. We acknowledge that the purpose of the project is to basically solve the food desert or lack of a grocery store there. And because of that and other business subsidy law factors, we canceled that public hearing. So there was originally a public hearing scheduled, but I wanted to note that there is no public hearing tonight, and we canceled it within the parameters of when we can do that. And so just in case there was any questions or confusion related to that, I wanted to highlight that. A couple other unique pieces of this deal. So transient lodging, Airbnb, VRBO, et cetera, aren't allowed in Bloomington to date, but we do and have been trying to limit that in these projects in case Bloomington does open that up or state law changes or something like that. Mostly because the hotel market is so good in South Loop already. We didn't want these projects turning into de facto hotels if and when that transient lodging limitation were opened up by either the city or the state. So they can still have some, but they won't be predominantly hotels. The goal of the South Loop District Plan is to create a neighborhood here and yes, add hotels, but we want to do that intentionally with the other hotel projects that are being built. And then we have the PAYGO note itself, and again, we would issue that note upon financial closing. It's got various components of that, similar to other projects at BCS and others that we've done with the interest rate, which is a way to that the note gets monetized with the financing entities. And again, the big piece here is the risk of the TIF stream is held by the developer and not the city. And again, the recapture agreements, which I spoke of before. Again, the grocery recapture is fairly complicated. There's a recapture beyond 2% of EBITDA that gets prioritized as shown in this graph. And we create these various buckets to hold those funds. And then in good years, those buckets fill up, and in short years, if there are any, those buckets get pulled back. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we look at the project, and at the 8-year mark, we decide if there's a recapture, and if there is, those funds get paid back. And I'm somewhat optimistic that there will be a recapture on this. I hope there is, because it means the project is done well. The grocery tenant has made their money and made even more money than that. And I think there's a good chance of that happening with the residential growth that we're seeing in that district. And the market studies that we've talked about before just simply don't recognize the hotel rooms and Mall of America and other things that happen in South Loop that you don't typically see in an area. And so, of course, nobody knows, but I feel like there's a potential on this one. So happy to go through any of that in detail, but that's in a summary sense how it works. One of the things that probably the one thing that's a deal point that is different from what we brought to the Council and Port Authority back on May 4 of 2021 is that there was going to be a deed restriction to require a grocery store to be in that space, and that was just stated point blank. One of the things that McGuff asked and staff ultimately got comfortable with recommending approval of is, what if the grocery store doesn't do well? Would we require that space to sit vacant for, pretend the grocery store is there for 2 years and they can't make it work, then they go out and try to find another grocery store and they can't get anybody. Would we require then that space to sit empty for the remaining period in that 8 years? And we didn't think that was a good idea. I mean, certainly the development and finance entities that want to have a grocery store more than anybody. I think our interests are aligned, but I don't think anybody wants to see it sit empty. And so there's a process outlined in the agreements where they can seek approval for a different type of use if grocery isn't successful.
I spent some time talking with Shane this morning, having spent most of my business career in the food industry and dealing with these things all the time. With the food store, it is putting in there all the refrigeration equipment and other stuff that's very, very expensive. And so you're probably looking on this $8 million project that costing $2 or maybe even $3 million. And it's the kind of thing that if you take it out of there, it's maybe worth 10 cents on the dollar. So I think what you end up getting into is there are tremendous economic incentives, and I would also guess that maybe 3 to 4% of the total operating cost of the supermarket would be related to depreciation of that equipment. So if you would get into a situation where it does not perform as you want, and I happen to agree with Shane, I think it may do quite well. But at any rate, if you got into that situation, the economics are is that there's tremendous incentive to take and get somebody else in there, and they can do it at a pretty low cost. So that doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I think the economic incentives are strong. You know, much like we talked about, if somebody starts construction of the water park, they're going to finish it. Well, you get into the same kind of situation here.
And then we've got an opportunity housing plan. Again, provides for 36 units of affordable housing at 60% of AMI for 20 years, and the various details related to that. Easement and maintenance agreement. We have a number of these that cover the public ways out there. That's not part of the action tonight, but this is something that would get executed later. Again, it's an agreement that we have used many times on this project before. Third-party design peer review. So we've completed this, and they've determined that the costs are adequate and reasonable. That there's nothing out of order as it relates to the public investment costs. And we do a third-party cost review during the construction of the project, but that can be executed by the Port Authority Administrator, myself, and is not part of the action that we're asking the Port to approve this evening. So that's it. It's a heck of a lot simpler than our last item, but it is something that, of course, on a normal night might get to, might seem more involved. But again, it's similar to the other two projects that we've done on this space. The big thing, of course, is grocery, and the complicated piece of this deal relates to the grocery and the recapture related to it. And again, we've got a whole team of folks working on this. I want to make sure that that team is recognized. It's the same or similar team that's working on the Mall Waterpark project, and so moving these forward in this time frame has been challenging. But they're here to answer questions along with myself if there are any. And I know that McGuff is on the line as well. They haven't prepared a presentation, but they're here for any questions that may arise. So with that, Mr. Mayor and President, concludes my presentation.
Thanks, Shane. Councilmember D'Alessandro.
Thank you, Mayor. Two quick questions, and one may be for the folks from McGuff, if that is the case. You mentioned that the groundbreaking would happen and then there would be occupancy options in the late 2023, I think it was. Does that include that the grocery store might open at that time, since it's on the first floor? Hoping, maybe?
I think it's a great question for Mark Fable, who I know is on the line, and I'll let him answer that.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Fable. Welcome.
I noticed Mr. Fable doesn't have a microphone by his name, which I think means he hasn't connected to the audio. So, yeah, Mr. Fable, perhaps you can, if you can hear us. Yep, he's.
Okay.
Yep, we got you now.
Perfect. Thank you. Mayor Bussey, President Erickson, and council members and members of the authority, thank you very much. And Shane, fantastic presentation. Again, really thank you for all the support that you've provided us for the years, and we're excited to be where we're at today. Councilmember D'Alessandro, to answer your question, we are hoping to break ground candidly in about 3 weeks. We're very close to that moment, and it's about a 17-month project to build the first phase. It's a 2-phase project in the sense that we're going to open up about 250 units for the first section, and that section will include the common areas and the grocery store. So in 17 months from April 1st, we'll have a grocery store that will open with the first half of the project, and then we'll continue to finish the second half of the project 4 months later. So yeah, the good news is the grocery store will be open as part of the first phase opening and be available around November of 23.
Excellent. It is great news. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. One question that might be either for you, Shane, or maybe city manager. I've been kind of between the two projects. I just wondered, as we consider our Bloomington sales tax options, does that sales tax get applied only to the area as well? Like, does it fall under the jurisdiction of taxes when it comes to the districts, or is that more a part of the overall pool of local sales tax that goes to those projects? We've never talked about it, and I didn't know the answer to that question. Do you know what I mean?
Are you asking would the sales tax, would the Bloomington sales tax that we're talking about apply to specific areas or citywide?
Nope. So the other way around, actually. So if I buy groceries and I buy taxable items at the grocery store on Penn and American, I know that I'll pay into the overall Bloomington sales tax pool that goes to pay for those projects. If I buy that same thing at this grocery store in the South Loop, does the money go to the city, or does it have to stay in the South Loop?
I think, Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe as collected, it goes to a city, to the city pool. It is not specific to an area. It's not specifically staying in South Loop or specifically saying down at Old Shakopee and France Avenue where Cub is. It goes to the entire city. It's applied citywide.
And is that
Mr. Mayor, council members, Councilmember D'Alessandro, that's accurate. We for the local option sales tax, it would apply citywide, and it would all accrue to the city.
Okay.
We do have alternative revenues by legislation that are also sales taxes that are separate from that Bloomington sales tax that we're seeking. Shane can speak more about those that are authorized and have never been turned on, but that would be separate and distinct from the local option sales tax authorization that we're seeking.
Okay, so to be specific, if I buy a drink at the Radisson Blue and I pay currently the liquor tax on that sale today as I drink it, I would have the additional 0.5% tax for local option sales tax, but the tax that is on there today goes back to the South Loop Development Fund, but the local tax comes to the city that we get to use for these projects. Am I correct? Shane's saying, but wait.
Mr. Rudling.
Mr. Mayor, council members, and Port Authority commissioners. So you gotta be careful when you use the word tax. So you buy a jug of milk at this BCS4 grocery store. Wait, let's make sure it's a taxable item. You have to buy something at the grocery store that's taxable. So you buy your taxable grocery store item.
Sure, like aluminum foil or something. I don't
Yeah,
know. Right.
however that plays out. But you use the grocery store, and that's what we're talking about here. So I think it's important to do that. So you buy that same taxable item at the grocery store at Bloomington Central Station or over someplace, whatever, Lindale Cub. That if there's a local option sales tax in place, that money is going to go to the city general fund. Period. Okay. Alcohol is a little different because it gets sales tax and it also gets liquor tax if you buy it on sale. If you buy it off sale, there's no liquor tax in Bloomington. So you buy a drink at a hotel lobby, anywhere in the city, it goes to the South Loop Development Fund. Okay. And then, as the city manager mentioned, we have these what we call ARBLs, ARBLS, alternative revenue sources by legislation. Those are taxes that have never been turned on, but they are legislation that the city and the mall sought and got back in 2008 and 2010. Again, those are not in place today. those are specific taxes that can be used only for specific things and only specifically turned on in certain areas of the city. Most of them only at the Mall of America. There's one that's a lodging tax arble that you can turn on anywhere in the city. Again, if you did that, it only can go to the South Loop District. And the reason that is because they were sought by the city and the mall for the specific purpose of funding infrastructure and things at the mall. So that's a long answer, but I think I got that.
Thank you.
Got that all
I
right.
appreciate you all helping me out with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Commissioner Luntz. Commissioner Luntz?
Thank you, Chairman Erickson. Hey, Mark, good to see you again. I just have to ask out of pure curiosity question. We have precisely the same number of units in this project as we do in the Findlay. I was just kind of wondering how that happened. And are you, with my tongue firmly in cheek, are you building tract apartment buildings?
Mayor Bussey, members of the council, and members of the authority, Commissioner Lunds, absolutely not. This is a distinctly very unique project, tongue in cheek. It is a very unique project, actually. We're very proud of it. And ESG Architects has done a great job of differentiating this project from the Findlay. After the Findlay was done, I kind of promised myself I would never do a 400 unit project again in Bloomington. But I think we quickly realized the importance of the grocery store. And I think it was going to be a hard convince for ourselves to try to go start a grocery store without building another 400 units. So honestly, it was the grocery store viability that drove the similarity in size and candidly the design, just because it's the most economical approach to build that many units based on the parking solution. So it was really the grocery store that drove the similarity in the two projects, interestingly enough.
So Commissioner Luntz, are we tracking now?
Well, I think I meant detract. We meant tract, T-R-A-C-T. So if I didn't get that, didn't come across, but
you did.
Looks
you
good.
Did.
Look good.
Commissioner Lunds, I always get a kick out of how folks like Mark Fable distinguish these projects. For a while, we were calling this project Blue Jeans because Mr. Fable was very excited about how this was a project for people that wear blue jeans, and it's not the Fenley and it's not indigo. It's all this other. My eyes just gloss over, and I'm like, okay, it's different. But to me, it's still a 400 unit project. Rent's about the same. It's got groceries. That's the kicker.
Well, it must mean they're going to use the Minnesota Valley National Wildlife Refuge more too.
I hope so.
Mr. Fable, if I could, I think this has been covered. I'm just trying to remember because it may have been a while since we've talked about it. But for the parking for the grocery store, obviously it's not just going to be walk up. It's not just going to be folks in the building, but there's got to be a parking aspect to that. Could you describe how that works? Is it on-street parking? Are there additional off-street parking spaces specifically for the grocery store short term?
Mayor Bussey, the parking solution for the grocery store actually is because it's part of a larger multifamily project, it has some advantages, right? So we have about 36 parking stalls that are going to be located directly outside the front door of the liquor store, grocery store entrance on 80th and a half Street, which is the road that goes east-west. There you go. Thank you, Shane or Carolyn. So you can see on the north of that, just above the red circle, you can see 36 parking stalls. Those stalls will be specifically branded for the retail and grocery store, and the parking will be limited from, again, 7 o'clock in the morning until, say, 8 o'clock at night. And then that parking can be turned over to more complimentary parking for people from the multifamily that might be overnight guests of a resident. So we want that parking to be used by both. Then there are an additional 55 to 57 parking stalls that are going to be inside the parking ramp that are also going to be complimentary parking and benefit able to be used for people going to the grocery store, but also guests of the apartment building. So I think the time of day adjustments between retail shoppers and residents of the housing make that parking be fairly complimentary. And I think the most important part is having that parking lot to the north of the entrance being super accessible and proximate to that front door, which it is. That will make it work well. We also have on-street parking that will be on the north-south section of 31st Avenue, as well as on the east-west section of 80th and a half Street.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Hunt?
Another question for Mr. Fable. Not project specific, but just a generic question for the South Loop area and the multifamily project or buildings. What's the vacancy rate right now? Just top of head. And then what was it last year at this time?
For which project? Overall?
Just the overall in South Loop.
I don't know what the overall South Loop occupancy is, but I will tell you that the Indigo project, which is at Bloomington Central Station, which we are not part of, so this is, third-party data. They've really maintained a very strong 95% occupancy. And the Fenley project, although it opened on the first day of, shelter in place during COVID, it actually ended up leasing up successfully after about February of that year. And so right now we're over 80% occupied, and we're I think just this week, we leased about 7 to 9 units this week alone. So the spring momentum is starting, and we're optimistic that we'll be fully leased by the end of summer.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Council Port, if there are no additional questions on this, comments? Mr. Fable, comment?
Yeah, I do. Mayor Bussey and members of the council and members of the Port Authority, just, having been on this meeting and listening to all of the conversations about the Mall of America and the Waterpark and knowing what all work went into the BCS 4 project, I just want to emphasize the same compliments that have been made from the staff and from the commissioners and council members. The staff that Bloomington has that works on these projects is tremendous. I mean, they're sophisticated, they're intelligent, they're smart, they're collaborative. The council for the Port Authority, Julie Eddington, has been involved in multiple projects at Bloomington Central Station and is critical to tie all the project data and information together, and a great resource for the team. When we work on these projects, it's not the developer bringing forward a plan and an idea and having the city, review it. We truly have phone calls where it's collaborative in the sense that we're both bringing ideas forward, challenging things, and finding solutions. So tremendously complimentary of the team. Shane Rudling, thanks for your leadership. Becky is the master of all at Bloomington Central Station and does a fantastic job managing the project. Mark Reichel, extremely diligent in all the details, as we all know, and played a great role through that process, and Julie Eddington as well. So it's fun to work with everyone. They're friends and they're great team members in the project. And I just want you to know how proud we are to be able to do work in Bloomington. So thank you for that.
So Mark, you can tell me, did Becky Schindler have to use her mother's voice with you at any time in these negotiations?
President Erickson, you know her too well, and I think you know me too well. Yes, she gets on my case and she'll scold me right loud and fast.
Thank you.
Thanks for those kind words, Mr. Fable. Councilmember Coulter.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be brief. I just wanted to say that I'm really particularly excited about the grocery store element. I know this has been a long time issue, even back to my time on the HRA and looking for development in the South Loop area. And I think it was last year when I was running for re-election. I think Councilmember Martin and I had an event at I'm forgetting now which complex it was, but one of the complexes in the South Loop, and residents there, the biggest thing on their mind was having a grocery store that they could get to easily. So that is a huge piece. The rest of the development is good. I'm happy to support that as well, but just really wanted to call that out because that is a long time coming, and I'm just really pleased to see that come to fruition.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if we have anybody else that wants to go ask questions or make comments. And this is an item that the Port Authority has to move on before the City Council, because the City Council action is to affirm the decision that we've made. So unless there's further discussion that we want to have by anybody, I would entertain a motion, which is on page 38 of your package, which is the staff recommendation.
I would move to adopt a resolution approving the secondary development agreement with the City of Bloomington, Bloomington Central Station, LLC, and BCS 4 Multifamily, LLC for the BCS 4 project.
Second. Order.
Thank you, Commissioner Luntz. The motion was seconded by Commissioner Carter. Any further discussion? If not, Carolyn, do you want to call the roll?
Bussey,
Aye.
Carter,
Aye.
Hunt,
Aye.
Lunds,
Aye.
Peterson,
Aye.
and Erickson.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0.
And council, I would look for a similar motion.
Happy to do that.
Councilmember D'Alessandro.
I will make a motion to adopt a resolution approving the secondary development agreement with the Port Authority, Bloomington Central Station LLC, and BCS4 Multifamily LLC for the BCS4 project.
Second, Coulter.
Motion by Councilmember D'Alessandro, second by Councilmember Coulter to adopt a resolution approving the secondary development agreement with the Port Authority and others. Hearing no further discussion on this, Carolyn.
Carter,
Aye.
Coulter,
Aye.
D'Alessandro,
Aye.
Lohman,
Aye.
Martin, Nelson,
Aye.
Bussey.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fable.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Good luck groundbreaking in 3 weeks. Better warm up significantly if you're going to get in the ground in 3 weeks. So let's hope.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Item 3.3 on our agenda is a wayfinding agreement amendment. This is a Port Authority action only. Mr. Rudlang.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't mean to cut things short, but I just happen to notice that the remaining items on the agenda are solely Port Authority action. I'm wondering if it would be possible or preferable to adjourn the city council portion of this meeting. In part because today is my birthday.
All together now.
I think that's the most compelling reason that I've heard all evening. Mr. Verbrugge, Ms. Manderscheid, is there any issue if we adjourn the city council portion of this council Port Authority concurrent meeting?
I'll defer to the city attorney, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor, members, unless Ms. Eddington disagrees, I am comfortable with the city council formally adjourning from this concurrent meeting.
Mr. Rudlang, you gave it a couple thumbs up. I think we're okay. Ms. Eddington, if you have any trouble with that, please speak up now. Otherwise, council.
Mr. Mayor, that sounds fine to me. Thank you.
Very good. Because there's only Port Authority action left on the last two items on the agenda, council, I would look for a motion to adjourn the city council portion of this council Port Authority concurrent meeting.
So moved. Coulter.
Second.
Motion by the birthday boy, second by Councilmember D'Alessandro to adjourn the city council portion of this meeting. Hearing no further council discussion on this. Carolyn.
Carter.
Aye.
Coulter.
Aye.
D'Alessandro.
Aye.
Lohman.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
And Bussey.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Just want to thank and call out Councilmember Nelson for sticking with us while on the road. Well done. And Councilmember Coulter, you are dismissed. Go have a happy birthday. And Councilmember Carter and I will stay here and hold down our portions of the Port Authority as well. So thank you all. Thanks so much for your work tonight.
Good night.
Happy birthday.
Okay, well, let us then move ahead with covering item 3.3. Shane, do you want to talk to us about that?
Let's see. Who am I addressing now? Let's see. Mr. President and Port Authority Commissioners.
You're really doing pretty well, although I've noticed your voice has gotten a little gravelly. But
Item 3.3, again, just for Port Authority action, the City Council considered this on Monday night as part of the consent agenda and approved it. And so this is a similar recommendation. The item is, I want to say it's carbon copied from the City Council, but fundamentally what this is, and legal can speak to it in more detail, is modifying our on-site wayfinding agreement, which pertains to the Park Assist system that is at Mall of America. the green lights above the parking spaces, the green and red and blue sometimes, designating when those spots are open and how that data is managed. And so both Julie and Melissa are here to speak to the legal points if there are questions, but it's an amendment that has been negotiated with Mall of America to classify that data and clarify that it's confidential information. And I'd be happy to stop talking and let Melissa and Julie opine on this more specifically, if requested.
So I guess the question is would any Port Authority Commissioner like further explanation or information from either our city attorney or from Julie Eddington, our Port Authority attorney? Seeing none, then I think we have a motion before us, which I would entertain. The motion for us on page 174 of your package. I can read the motion. Motion made by blank and seconded by blank to approve amendments to the on-site wayfinding agreement between the City Port Authority and MOAC Mall Holdings LLC. Do we have?
I'll move it to put my name in the first blank.
Okay. Do we have a second blank?
Second.
I will second it.
Okay. Well, you had somebody beat you to it, Rob. So we have a motion made by Commissioner Peterson, seconded by Commissioner Carter. Is there any further discussion? If not, Carolyn, you want to call the roll?
Bussey.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye.
Hunt.
Aye.
Lunds.
Aye.
Peterson.
Blankety blank Peterson says aye.
And Erickson.
Aye.
Thank
Motion
you.
carries 6-0. And then we have one other small housekeeping item, which should really be fast. And I'll read this, then we can maybe entertain the motion for it. Motion made by blank, seconded by blank, to acknowledge the Port Authority President's determination regarding conducting meetings by telephone or interactive technology and shifting back to in-person meetings as of March 14th, 2022. Does any commissioner wish to make that motion?
I will.
Okay. Commissioner Luntz, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hunt.
If I could, Mr. President, I just wanted to let the Port Authority know this is consistent with what other city boards and commissions, and for that matter, the City Council. We're coming back to in-person meetings, and so this would be consistent along with that.
Okay, any further discussion? All right. If not, Karen, please call the roll.
Bussey.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye.
Hunt.
Aye.
Lunds.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
And Erickson.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. I think that concludes our agenda. Jane, you have anything else? I would then adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much. And
Good night, everyone.
And to the staff for all your hard work.